We're not trying to be something big and fancy, you know. It's just us doing what we do. Let's keep it that way.
This is a major rager here.
He had an acoustic guitar and hammer. That's all he'd bring on tour.
Shout the questions out, maybe? How does it feel? Sorry about that. I forgot about that.
Do you want to answer that again? The proper way?
Hey, what's up, everybody? We are live, dude. Cliffburton Day 2022. Whew, it feels good to be here today. Oh, man. So, yeah, that video was made by Robin Mavis. You may know her as Cliffburton_Major Rager on Instagram. She's really cool. She always hooks us up with a video every year. Yeah, so, Cliffburton Day. I can't believe it's been a year already, dudes. This is crazy. Last year was super cool. Every year's been super cool. This year's a little different. We did a bunch of good interviews, right? Interviewed about 7 people, a lot of Cliff's good friends. And with that 7 people, I got about 14 hours of footage of interviews, and I had to compress it down to something that we can all watch tonight on Cliff's birthday. So, yeah, I really hope you enjoy these videos that we made. I'd like to take a moment to introduce behind the scenes partner who's really making my life much easier today. His name is JP. JP, how about you hop on board real fast? Say what's up to the people.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Happy birthday, Cliff.
Yes. Happy birthday, Cliff. So, my man, you excited as I am to be here today?
Oh, man, I'm stoked. It's such an honor to be part of this. I grew up in Castro Valley just like you. And, you know, the fact that Alameda County made Cliffburton Day an actual thing and we're able to celebrate it, I'm so stoked and so honored. So thank you so much for inviting me, Nick.
Right on. Thanks for joining us. That you mentioned the proclamation, we absolutely have to give a shout out to our homie Robert Souza, CV News, who put in all the legwork with first Castro Valley and then Alameda County Board of Supervisors to get Cliffburton Day to be, Alameda County holiday. So that's why we're here today. So anyways, we got a long, good, awesome show ahead of us. So let's jump into what I want to call a 6-part miniseries, a documentary about the life of Cliff Burton. Here we go, guys. Mm-hmm. Did you ever spend any time in Castro Valley with Cliff?
At his apartment, yeah.
Okay.
I pick him up and take him places sometimes when Volkswagen wasn't working or something.
Oh,
the duct tape came off, yeah.
How about any interactions with Ray or Jan?
Oh yeah, man. Great. So Ray would see me coming, right? And he'd look and he'd stop, get down like this, and he goes, "Hello there, old Danny R."
there was an inner light inside Ray.
Mm-hmm.
That anybody that got near to him and dealt with him, even if you'd never met the guy before, you felt that inner light of Ray. And I'm not some hippie fucking guy who's going, oh my God, the aura. No, he was a man who had suffered many losses in his life, massive losses, with Jan, Cliff, and everybody. And I think there was another son as well, wasn't there?
His son, Scott.
Yeah. I mean, for a man that had lost so much of his family, to even be able to raise a smile, you would think that you would be so scarred from all those events. The guy was a light, a bright light.
When you met Ray, did you instantly feel the spirit of Cliff in Ray and where Cliff got his spirit from?
So first time I met Ray, we played a place called the Omni in Oakland, I believe it was. And Cliff's dad, Ray, came down to the show and was with us on the bus afterwards, hanging out with us. And he was the nicest man you'd ever want to meet. And you could just see, like, the lineage, just a nice guy. Like Cliff, same kind of demeanor. And then throughout the years, I would see him too. He would come to the shows, and the last time I saw him was at the Murder in the Front Row premiere in San Francisco at the Kabuki. That was the last time I saw him.
Security who stopped him, I mean, it used to infuriate me. Anybody messing with Ray, you better look out, because he comes with a lot of friends, I always loved him being around. It's sad he's gone, but bless him, he lived a very long life and a very full life. And you would never know his age. He's in his 90s. We got him chairs. We always wanted to make him mega comfortable. Wherever he came to see Metallica, he knew just come to the front of his desk and he could sit there, and we would make sure he had a seat. He could always do whatever. But he was such a warm person. I was gutted when Ray passed. I mean, I knew it would be inevitable. How old was he? 94?
Yeah, mid-90s.
He was definitely. I mean, he might have even been a bit older than 94. But loved by so many. You saw it, the kids who all wanted to talk to Ray. And, you think about, I'm 63. And trust me, if you want to talk to anybody at 94 or whatever in your 90s and have people roaring at you and he took that, cool as a cucumber, would talk to all of them and would stand there until he'd spoke to everybody who wanted to speak to him. And it's the same light that Cliff had as well. They would have, obviously was his. So this, I don't know, there was an extra dimension to the way they were. And, Ray, he felt like your granddad. It's like he was your personal granddad. Anybody that dealt with Ray felt like, yeah, he could be my granddad, this guy. I thought the world of Ray. I really did. And, I'd always look forward to seeing him. I'd want to stay in his presence for as long as I could when he was about. I wanted to be around him. Just because he recharged you. If somebody can be that old and go through such torture in their lives and still maintain that demeanour, what kind of right does anybody else have to be even remotely miserable? When he can be that happy, I mean, what's happened to him? Been reminded of it being at a concert where his son should be playing bass on stage and would have been. And he's not, because he passed away in a crash. But still be not reminded in a negative sense of it being joyous as to what went on. Every gig he ever came to, he thoroughly enjoyed it. And that's kind of warm. That's a warm feeling, that is.
Just what a phenomenal guy. And again, you see how Cliff could be such a great guy because Ray was such a wonderful human being. I'm so happy that he got to see over all these years the success and the influence that Cliff had, and to be a part of it. And he was a part of the 30th anniversary and obviously the whole thing. So that's
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and everything.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely 100%.
Ray was real, and that was Cliff, just a much younger version. Headstrong, driven, and nice to people. He just didn't ever change. I never saw Ray change. Even after all the tortures and whatever, he was still that warm person.
And like I've said before, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. When you meet Ray, you could see where Cliff got a lot of his personality and roots and stuff was from Ray. The kind of person that Ray was. Cliff was like that too, down to earth, really nice guy, and somebody who you met and you connected with.
Like I went to the Metallica 40th anniversary shows last month, and just the amount of kids wearing Cliff shirts, or and they played Orion, and Orion to a lot of bands would be a deep cut because it's an instrumental, and
but it's on the third album.
But when the band played Orion, the entire arena knew what it was. It wasn't like they're waiting for Enter Sandman and then that's the only song they know. Like at least for that show and that crowd, like Orion was like a big emotional thing, and like it was pretty amazing. It's always amazing. It's always amazing to see, like when they play Orion, or when Robert plays Anesthesia, because Robert's started playing Cliff solo a little bit, and sometimes in shows, and just seeing the reaction to people, because how many other bands have like an instrumental on an album, or a past member did a solo or something, and a lot of newer fans just don't know about it, and it's really cool. Like at least with Metallica, their fans and the band have managed to like keep his memory alive.
Grabbed that torch and brought Ray out to meet the fans, and they got a personal contact, because you're right, that there was something so special about Ray that if you were in a conversation with him, it didn't matter what was going on around. It wasn't like he was trying to get away from you and get to somebody else. It was just you and him, and he gave you that personal, like open up to the door to his life, and and his personality, and what a great guy he was, and how proud he was of his son.
What I liked about what's been really cool for me, just watching the legacy kind of develop, is it's been genuine. It's like people see old videos of him and they gravitate towards it, like for whatever reason. Like maybe they're not seeing that kind of personality in newer music or whatever, but it's just it's really interesting. Like all these years later, you could show like a 14-year-old kid or something from Cliff Mall, like the bass solo from Day on the Green or something, and everybody has the same reaction. People saw a video of Cliff and he still looks relevant. Like that guy could be my next door neighbor or something, or like so it's just really interesting to me, like how Cliff's legacy and image is grown, like with this and with everything else.
I felt at that time that I wanted to write a letter to Jan and Ray and send them, just to let them know how important Clifford was to me and all my friends in Toronto, Canada. And, I did that and so on. And, for years and years, but it was funny because I talked to Casey just within the last 6 or 8 months, and she told me they kept all those letters. And,
wow.
Yeah. And it was that kind of like, wow,
Yeah, she said it really helped them get through it, or just be right there for them.
Yeah. And so it's just like, in a way, it sums up why I want to help. Is this like, carry on, I guess I call it the strong spirit and strong memories of Cliff and Ray and so on. And that's the truth. Honestly, it's like, just I if you don't interview me, I'd be more than happy. And just like rather, Casey came up with it, and I'm like, okay, if Casey wants it, but
no way. You know, it was what I guess it had probably been the first time I had seen him in like forever. And I went up and I go, Ray, I don't know if you remember me, but you know, my name is Dan R. And he goes, Danny R. You know, and I was like, God, man, he was just like that. You know, he goes, good, man, you know. And so, anyways, it was funny because Big Mick got up and he goes, I got to take off for a while. The band's on stage because the sound guy, right? And he goes, I go, really? And he goes, oh, yeah, Ray's got it. And so anyways, he leaves, you know.
We did have a party at Ray and Jan's place after one of the gigs we did. I can't remember where it was. I can't remember what gig it was. But we all went back to Ray's place. It was fun. We had Cliff's bass there, you know. I mean, this was after it had all happened and the band were back on the road with Jason and whatever. We went and had a thing at Cliff's, Ray's place. Cliff's bass was there. It was really cool, you know. And I'll always remember it because as a British person, right, you don't have window screens or door screens. You know, we don't have bugs that want to come in normally. So you can leave a door open. But of course, and I wasn't used to any of that. So I was inside Ray's house and a lot of it was going outside on the garden, out the back. And as it went dark, I literally walked through the door screen because the screen was closed, but it was dark outside and I couldn't see there was a fucking screen there. And I always remember to this day I walked through. I apologised to Ray, like probably a few years back about it. I'm like, I was the guy who broke your door. You know, walked right through the fucking screen. I always remember that. It was really like, oh my God, what have I done? British guy in America, door screen, in the dark, can't see him. That was really nice. They, you know, I mean, Ray and Jan, they were fantastic with the band. You know, I mean, I could totally see, you know, people being so distraught that it's like, well, I don't want to do this anymore. You know what I mean? And they were a firm reminder that Cliff would not expect anybody to give anything up. And that, you know, you should really carry on and do it for him and in his memory. And they have, and they've been fantastic at keeping Cliff's memory alive, rightfully so.
And I know, you know, Cliff was proud of his mother and father. You know, he talked about him back in the day when, you know, I hung out with him in the 80s and stuff. And what a special connection it was that he had with his parents. And
then think about what he left behind for his family. Like mentioned that his life goals were to be able to buy his parents a house, you know, let them own a place of their own. He was able to do that. And then to leave his father with his rock star legacy. Essentially, Ray Burton became the place of Cliff Burton. Yeah, bless your father with that into into his 90s. Like, that's an amazing thing to be able to take care of your family from beyond the cosmos as well too. So I mean, that dude was on a level of his own, like different kind of guy.
And thankfully Ray was able to get out there and become the new hero for us all, right?
And I have this memory of briefly meeting Ray and Cliff's mom, and they were both wearing "Metal Up Your Ass" shirts. It struck me that his parents were at the show supporting him, like his first show. And like, they weren't just at the show, they were wearing the band's shirt that said "Metal Up Your Ass."
Yeah, a nice vulgar shirt with a toilet and a knife.
So it's like, I always remember that. I told Ray that at one point when I saw him somewhere and we talked, and like I was able to tell him that story because I think it said, you know, again, like the stories you always hear and all that, like how supported Cliff was by his family.
And there was nothing better than calling Ray up, and, you know, he would be like, "Hello, Metal Joe," you know, and here's like a guy that's almost 90 saying, "Hello, Metal Joe" on the phone. It's like, wow, this guy's awesome. So when we first started with the foundation, I'd given him a call and, you know, wanted to run it by him and sent him some of the stuff. And from day one, they were on board with wanting to help us out. Because once he heard that we were raising money for kids who were underprivileged and, you know, needed some help with lessons and instruments, they got right on board. The old Bridge Militia Foundation is a concept of a bunch of us guys getting back together from the past and starting to found a 501(c) charity foundation wrapped around music, with giving back to kids with instruments and lessons. And what better way to do that than, you know, people that were involved in the music scene in the early metal days. So that's where the whole concept came from, was to give back, you know, to start something that, using our story of being hooked up with Metallica and helping out people like we did, like the whole town and everybody that got on board with the music scene in that era. So we just came up with the idea of doing the Old Bridge Militia Foundation, and you know, no making any money, just everybody trying to help each other out, and by helping out and doing events and stuff, we could raise money for kids that couldn't afford musical instruments and lessons. So that's the whole concept of the foundation. oldbridgemilitia.org. We have a website, OB Militia on Facebook. But if you punch in Old Bridge Militia Foundation, you'll get, you know, a search engine, but it's oldbridgemilitia.org is the website.
That's
so check
perfect.
us out, you know, help us out. And if you're in New Jersey and we're having some kind of thing, show.
Oh, sorry. I'm showing the link that's playing the day of right here on the bottom. There it is.
I'm reading down what's in front of me. It says you're in the show.
Now it's right there.
Yeah,
it's
so
editing magic.
Yeah, that would be awesome if they could just check it out. There's great pictures and there's a great story that Rock and Ray wrote in there, and then there's all kinds of information about what we do in our different shows that we put on, and we try to, you know, and it's 100%. No one makes any money. It all goes to the kids. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
It's very cool, very heartwarming. I love that it has the Cliff Burton affiliation as well.
Right. Yeah.
And just the history with Metallica and how you guys took them under the wing, and
right.
You know, look who they are today. It's like you guys have a huge impact on the world.
Yeah. It's who knew? You know what I mean? Who knew?
Who knew?
Yeah. Nobody knew.
You guys were just kids having fun, and then boom.
Hi, folks. This is old Ray Burton again, talking to you from Southern California. And I wanted to thank you again for purchasing some of our T-shirts. And I just wanted to kind of show you where the T-shirts and the money from the T-shirts is going. And this is one of the organizations, well, there's several of them, but one of the organizations is back in New Jersey, and it's the Old Bridge Militia Foundation, and it was started. Cliff used to come home from an Eastern tour, and he would comment on what a great bunch of kids in New Jersey that he enjoyed, and they treated him so well. And so anyway, they've started this foundation, and they have T-shirts, and the Cliff Burton family T-shirts, kinda. And anyway, I want to thank you for purchasing them, and this is where the money goes. The money goes to foundations like this. There are several others out there, and we appreciate you all for purchasing the T-shirts. They're a great picture of Cliff and a picture of me. I could never quite get the same growl that he had, but anyway, he was a great kid. So anyway, go out and promote and put your money into helping kids that don't have the privilege of learning to play instruments. This helps them. The foundation is to help young people to get interested in music, and we really appreciate your participating. Thank you very much. I will talk to you later, so see you later, folks.
All right, we're back. So you can't talk about Cliff Burton without talking about Ray Burton. And many of us were really fortunate to meet Ray Burton in the past. And for me personally, meeting him, he was Big Mick said it the best. It's like your own personal grandpa. He was warm, kind. The very first thing he said to me was, "I was looking for you." I was in the Rasputins in Berkeley when Metallica did a record store day, and I saw him up on the balcony up there, and I had my Cliff Burton shirt on. I was like, Ray, I just want to show you this. And security ended up by kicking us out. And I got to go back in. I snuck back in, and Ray Burton was looking to talk to me. That felt amazing. The more I'm learning about Cliff, especially in this year's interviews that I've done, Cliff and Ray were so much alike. And the closest thing we're going to know to what Cliff Burton would be in his elder years is taking a look at Ray Burton. So I want to bring on a partner of mine in this. It's definitely not Cliff Burton Day without this gentleman who has been at every single Cliff Burton Day, who has spoke very beautiful stories and is also included in this 6-part mini documentary as well. But let's bring him on. His name is Mikebordin. Hey, Mike.
Hello.
Hey, good to see you, my man.
60.
60. We've had 60 years of Cliff Burton. It's only getting
a split second. 60. Hi.
It's a long time. Hi. So, yes, Cliff Burton Day, 60th. I'm excited. This is a cool year. Like I said, it's different. We did the interviews, and already it's just like boom. Ray Burton is such a prevalent person in this story of Cliff. I mean, you've personally known Ray. Like, tell me a little bit about the man.
I want to say one thing before I forget. I was watching the spectacular and wonderful, legendary Big Mick Hughes doing his talking, and the thing that I grabbed about it, having been somebody who was there, kind of most of the whole time. I knew Scott, and that whole tragedy, and Cliff tragedy, and Jan tragedy, and all the tragedies that he went through, like Mick said. But the thing that it seemed to me was, I think that the fans remembering Cliff and loving Cliff and appreciating Cliff and never letting him be forgotten. I think that really gave Ray life too, and I think Jan too. I think that was really important for them. Having lost so much, anyway, I think in some way it was therapeutic for him, or positive, or whatever you want to call it. I think it was. I think it really helped him, and I know they appreciated it, because you just saw Ray say it in his own words, he really appreciated it. So, but what was he like? I mean, everybody's kind of getting right around him as getting to the truth. I mean, he was a great guy. He was, funny and thoughtful and considerate, and he had his real strong sense of morals and his right and wrong. And, he would do anything for you if he believed in you, or you were doing the right thing by him. It's just like, he was a solid, great guy, and clearly the apple didn't fall too far from the tree. And I would say the same about Jan. Jan was amazing. Jan was an amazing person. So, what Metal Joe said is, like, Cliff loved his parents. They were good to him. They were cool, And Dan R. talking about, I mean, everybody says the same thing. They were just super cool, Who's going to go to a show with, a metal up your ass toilet shirt on,
Oh yeah.
And mean it, and like, and like really own it. So, I don't know. Great guy. Great family.
Well said. And as we'll dive in deeper in the broadcast, we'll learn more about the family that Cliff came from. On another note, did you hear about the Cliff Burton toy that just came out from Super 7?
Yes. I think it already came and gone, so you've already missed your chance.
Well, yeah, I guess we should announce now that it is sold out. It has been on the market for 3 days, and boom, that thing is gone. I luckily ordered 2 right before they sold out.
Go
so
figure.
Super rad, Brian Lou, for making that happen.
I mean, it's astounding. It's just, Dave from Canada, you know, who was on there, said the same. It was like you couldn't ever know how could you couldn't ever predict anything like this. It's just it takes on such a life of its own. You know, he takes on such a life of his own. I mean, it's kind of awesome and overwhelming and really incredibly humbling also to see it. You know, and I mean the first year, one of the first things I said, that a lot of people when they're gone, when they passed, you smooth out all the rough edges and you forget about all the stuff that wasn't so great, you know, and you think about, oh, well, this guy, he was okay, you know, his moments, but he was pretty great. Cliff was great all the way. If anybody I've ever met deserves, you know, the accolades and the honor and the real reverence that he's earned, it's him, because he deserved it. You know, he was a real dude. He wasn't full of shit. You know, he looked you in the eye, told the truth. I mean, he was a great, great guy.
Amen to that. So before we get into the next segment of this this doc, let's roll the footage that Brian Liu sent us over about his Cliff Burton Super 7 figure.
So my company, I work for a company, Super 7, in San Francisco. We're a designer toy and collectible company. And kind of our roots are punk rock and metal. Our owner and founder is an old skate punk. And, you know, long story short, as with a lot of things in life, it's come to me organically. And so we've been doing a lot of music related releases. And for Cliff's birthday this year, we're releasing, we have a line of action figures called Reaction Figures. They're 3 3/4 inch reaction figures are sort of retro. We've done a lot of them in the past based on like pop culture and things like that, but we've also done Iron Maiden and Slayer and Anthrax. But for this year, we're releasing the Cliff reaction figure, and it was done with Casey and the family. So it's a special thing for me since, you know, it's with Cliff. And so for this release, Ed Repka did the card art, and metal fans will know Repka from the album covers he did for Megadeth and the band Death, and, you know, all the other metal art that he's done. So, and then on the back there's a Harold Oyman photo, and so, like, you know, it's kind of full circle because, you know, action figures are associated with like horror movies and things like that, and, you know, Cliff was in that kind of into that stuff. And, you know, with Super 7, we kind of celebrate like nostalgia and things like that. So the fact that we were able to do a Cliff figure, and the Misfits gave us permission to use a recreation of the Misfit shirt, so it looks legit. And it also comes with a Kill 'Em All hammer and his bass. So that's out today on his birthday at super7.com. But I think the Probity Metallica site is also selling them, and then it'll also be in shops. So just something, I mean, for me, you know, work is work, but this work project was pretty special and personal, and I think it turned out really cool.
Oops, hit the wrong button. That's what happens when you live stream something. Okay, give me a minute, guys. Let me get into video file. Okay, we're going to get right back into the doc. Here we go with 1986.
Well, that's funny because Lars, whenever we'd watch a movie, he would every time, what the fuck is a key grip?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yep,
every
that's
time.
me.
Yeah, and of course we didn't have the internet, couldn't look it up.
Yeah, what's a key grip? What's a best boy?
Grab something
Do
and
like
watch.
lighting manipulation, and then anything that needs to be rigged. So if a camera needs to go on top of a car and do like this cool spin move, that's a grip.
Oh,
And
okay.
then-
Okay.
Yeah,
I still didn't know. I mean, he even explained it to me one day, and I was like, yeah, okay.
it's weird. It's a hard thing to
is.
explain. So most of the time I just say, oh, I'm in the lighting and camera department. Although I don't actually shoot anything. I just
Right.
rig it and I move it and I put it on things.
Right.
It's a fun, thankless job. I love it.
Yeah, big rigger.
Yeah, exactly. It's I want Big Rigger. Big Riggers Association, I think is what
Yes,
there we go.
I'm a member of that.
Tell me a little bit about those talks.
Oh man, you talking about Jägermeister talks?
Okay.
I don't remember half of them, to tell you, be honest with you.
How did you set up these meetings?
Big rigger inspection, spatial.
We didn't really set anything up. That just kind of happened, you know, and Big Riggers Association of America. And I was the sergeant of arms. And we had, we just kind of meet at some like weird places. There's always Lou, because Lou put the whole thing together, you know, and we came over the rigors of life through a bottle of Jägermeister.
Okay, so the reoccurring theme is, you know, would start with a location and a bottle of Jaeger or something to drink.
Yeah, and it was always the same guys, you know. It wasn't like we were gonna have a big riggers meeting. That never happened. It was just like we all ended up in the same place. We're like, hey, big riggers meeting.
Well, let's call this meeting to order then. All right.
Yeah,
Everybody
exactly.
present. We make quorum.
Oh yeah. Put people
what kind of
on
stuff
trial.
do you guys talk about?
You put people on trial. You do all kinds of crazy stuff, man. Yeah.
I want to say you guys recorded some of these on like VHS tapes too.
Oh, I'm sure there's some out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of them, but anyways, that's a secret society. You don't need to.
All right, we don't get to talk about it.
Yeah. Luke, kill you.
You know, even today, it's kind of hard to comprehend if I'm in the car or something and a Metallica song comes on. It still is a part of me. It's weird, especially if it's like an older, like Seek and Destroy comes on the radio.
Yeah.
And like, you know, back in the day, like that was kind of like the rally. That was the song on the early shows. Like that was the song that things went off.
Nice.
Like Seek and Destroy. Where now it's more like, you know, driving the kids to the mall song or something.
Everybody was wearing the clothing, the uniform that you saw from the bands overseas. So everybody's wearing tight black pants and punk rocky type of, you know, shirts and things like that. And Cliff was dressed more like Creedence Clearwater Revival, like a band member from Creedence Clearwater. And I always thought that was the coolest thing, that this dude liked other bands too. Like he would wear a Blue Oyster Cult. I thought that was cool, you know. Skinner, I thought that was cool. And I think it showed that he was versatile. He wasn't closed-minded. A lot of people in metal are very closed-minded. They want metal. They don't get that out of here. I don't want that, you know. But I think talking about Cliff and his sense of musicality and what he brought into Metallica, I thought when I would hear certain things and you'd find out that it was him that did that, it just made sense, you know. Like that piece in the song Orion, I just thought it was beautiful, you know, Cliff's part towards the end of the song. But his bass playing was just very melodic, and he was just a force, you know. He would wear bell bottoms and he would fucking headbang even off tempo, you know, off the beat, and it was Cliff.
Where yet again, like there was that brief moment where the scene was ours, like, and ours meaning like not that we were selfish about it, but like everybody around the scene, we were like the same. We were the same tribe. Like we all, you know, it was like the community. The sense of community was the strongest for me. Like that 1984 golden year, and then then after that, like the scene was getting bigger. You know, people who we didn't know were showing up at like Ruthie's Inn, which isn't a bad thing, but like, you know, just like more people were getting into the thing, and then like into the shows, and shows were getting more violent, but not in a good way.
Did you see the other members of the band seeking counsel in him because he was older and wiser?
I looked to Cliff because he was the older guy, you know, so why wouldn't you trust the wisdom of an older guy? And Cliff could be opinionated as well. You know, he could have an opinion on something and would have no problem in voicing that opinion. So no, they all used to talk to him. No, absolutely, he was fun to talk to. So, and I wouldn't. We'd talk and then we'd smoke and then we'd talk some more. So.
On stage, he was a major rager, just a ball of energy. Off stage, was he a little bit more cool, calm, and collective?
I thought that. Like mostly every night on that tour, Cliff would stand behind our marshals and watch and just headbang. And it'd get me going, you know what I mean? And every night they would play, I would watch from Cliff's side and just get that vibe and just enjoy it. Yeah, it's definitely a force, man. You know, you know, that band was those four members, you know, those four guys just clicked, and then it just worked, you know.
You know, Master Puppets came out, and I went to my Tower Records that I've been going to since I was, you know, a kid. I've been going to Tower Records as long as I could remember, to this one in Mountain View that was my Tower Records, and on the front end cap was a Metallica album.
So then Master comes out, and that's really the one where that's the one you hear and you go, oh my gosh, this is another, the upgrade they made from Kill 'Em All to Ride the Lightning. That was the next upgrade from Ride the Lightning to Master.
It was a trip because it was only like 4 years since they had the first time I heard them was on a cassette sent to me in the mail by a pen pal, and then like 4 years later, they're the lead release at a Tower Records, which is, you know, that was like, it didn't get any bigger than that, you know.
Yes, well, I mean, Metallica are unique, and you could tell it had nothing to do with anything else that was around at the time. It was like, you know, Ride the Lightning was unique. Who else was doing something like, they were like epic songs, you know, not just people just getting it, like trying to get into a groove or whatever. There was huge amount of parts, interesting lyrics, and executed really well. For guys that were so young, they did it really well. You know, it was very good.
I actually thought it was a perfect record. I mean, I loved Ride the Lightning. I thought Ride the Lightning was great. But Master of Puppets to me was them finding their sound and really honing in on it and really perfecting the songs. Yeah, for, you know, to this day, I still think that's their best record.
I got it the day it came out.
Sick. Where at? Rasputin's, Amoeba?
No, Santa Rosa Record Factory. I was living on this guy's couch. I was working construction. He lived in this horrible ghetto neighborhood. We had no money. We were drinking Schaefer's. Got it. Came home. Giant ghetto blaster. He pressed play and completely lost our mind. Everything about it. The song titles, the songs, the album cover, the Day in the Green photo on the back of Lars. You know, the sequencing, battery, you know, everything about it.
Cliff was really musical. Cliff brought lots of different elements to the table. You know, even if he didn't actually write something, I think he had quite an influence on what was about. You know, and because guys looked to him for help and guidance and whatever, I think he was that guy that you could sort of go, well, what would follow that note? You know, where would we go there? I mean, I'm not a musician, so I can't say. I never had those musical conversations that musicians seem to have, the, you know, that inner language of music. I don't have that. But I did see, you know, Cliff being sort of, he would be the one that I think that would be selective about something. You know, if there was a part they weren't playing very well, I think he would be the one, let's go, let's try this, let's do this. I think Cliff was that guy.
Did you attribute these changes in growth to Cliff at that time?
To all of them. But I felt Cliff had a lot to do with the You know, a lot of the guitar parts were the harmonies and stuff were just very musical. And to me, some of them were very emotional too when you hear them. And I just thought like they hit certain things right on the head, whether it was a real heavy tune like The Thing That Should Not Be, or something beautiful like Orion, where there's no vocals in it, but the guitars are just doing the singing, basically. And Cliff does the singing at the end of that song too, with that awesome bass part that he throws down. It's a great album, and I think, you know, to this day I will tell you that that's my favorite record that they did. I think it really all just came together.
We got over to the airport one time, and he was going, and we had, you know, this is way before 9/11 or any of that stuff was going down, so it was pretty lenient, but they still had a metal detector. So he goes through the metal detector, and he just, bang, you know, and everybody goes, "Oh, fuck, what's Cliff got?" And then as he comes walking back, you know, and he goes, "I don't have anything," and he goes walking through again, you know, they're like, no, stop here. So they get the wands out, right? And they're like, maybe, you know, like this. And so he goes, "Oh, yeah," and pulls out this big ass knife.
What was it like when you heard the news that they were going to go on tour with Ozzy?
Oh, I thought that was their big break. I thought they're going to be going into arenas, and they're going to be going to, you know, the Midwest, and, you know, just it's massive. I thought, because Ozzy at that time was massive, and I just thought that this was the perfect thing, and this is where it all changed.
So going out with Ozzy was, well, it's getting real, you know. Now we're not just doing the bars and the little tiny theaters and whatever. Now we're doing arenas, and it's let's go. And we did. And, you know, I got to be honest, the band just still did what they did. It's like, it wasn't like, oh, we better be better. No, it wasn't like that. It was like, oh, we're doing gigs with Ozzy now.
It started to grow, and the shows started to get bigger and bigger. People started to hear about it, you know, and it was great because the scene was getting bigger, the movement was getting bigger, and, you know, Metallica were at the forefront.
Feeling blasting Misfits on the bus every fucking night when we were all trying to get to sleep, and the rest of the band were guilty of that as well. And Cliff would always just max the stereo out wherever he was, and Misfits was the music of choice for all of them. And of course, you know, as crew were, we'd been up all day and all night loading trucks and whatever. And the next thing you know, the band's having a fucking party downstairs on the bus. We used to tell them in those days, I'm sure that wouldn't fly now, but we used to get down and go, "Oh, shut the fuck up, we're trying to sleep," you know. Cranky old crew. Cranky old British crew. Yeah.
I think they played 3 shows in LA, 2 or 3, I can't remember exactly, but I went to all of them, obviously. And that was the moment. That first night opening for Ozzy, that's when I knew, like, this band's going to be huge. Like, they're going to be big time huge. And I still get goosebumps thinking about that now, because it was just a revelation. I mean, I love Ozzy, but they just blew him off the stage. It was not even close.
And do you recall Cliff being particularly excited about this tour because he was a huge Black Sabbath fan?
I don't know. We were just so gung-ho to get to do what we did. I mean, I'm sure that he was absolutely enamored. Well, we were all all of us were enamored with Ozzy himself. And kept upbeat Ozzy Osbourne. And we just did what we did, and like I said, tried to do it to the best of our abilities. And the band grew big time on the Ozzy tour, without a shadow of a doubt, because they want to get Ozzy on stage. You know, that's what people were there to see. Perhaps not more towards the end of the tour. the band had done really well, and they were very popular.
Yeah. In the beginning, you see Aussie fans, but by the middle of the tour, it's Metallica fans filling up the floor and yelling Metallica afterwards.
And people screaming Metallica in Aussies. It was a shame because it was Aussie.
And then they were going to go, after the Aussie tour, they were going to go do their tour in Europe and the UK. And we were the special guest on that tour, support act. And it was awesome. I mean, we were starting to get a buzz overseas. And I think it was the friendship, and I think camaraderie. The scene was getting bigger, so the two big thrash bands, or the two bands from America that were doing something, this movement together, and of course Metallica were way on their way, and every show was awesome. It was packed. People were hungry for this, and man, I don't know. It's just such a great vibe and just such a great tour together.
We used to go to go-kart tracks and race go-kart. We had some fun. It wasn't all sleep and tiredness. No, we did have days off, and sometimes we'd arrange something and we'd all get together and go.
Mm-hmm.
Take one of the tour buses if the driver was willing to drive us.
Because I remember him and Kirk shared a room, and I remember the first night getting there, and we were all fucking jet lagged and everything. We ended up going out for a bit, and just hanging. That was it. We just hung out, And then we played some shows, and then we had a day off, and Scott, myself, Cliff, and Kirk, we went to get breakfast one day, and then we were just sitting there looking at the menus, and we're just bullshitting and talking. And that's when I asked about the song Master of Puppets. There's a line that James screams out right before the guitar solo comes in, and I couldn't make out what he said. And then I asked those guys, I said, what does James yell out in that part in Master of Puppets? And everybody had their menus open, and Kirk and Cliff looked at each other like they didn't know. And then Cliff looked down at the menu and he said, pancakes. I'm like, pancakes? He said, pancakes. And we all started cracking up. And then for the rest of that tour, when that part would come up, Cliff would always look over to me and go, pancakes. And it was just a funny thing. And when we did the first Big Four show, the night before, we all had this dinner. Just the band members had this dinner. And I remember I was talking to James, and Cliff his name came up, and we were talking about him, and I told him the story about pancakes. And James was just like, thank you for telling me this story. A lot of that stuff is gone. So it's like, and I understood what he meant, because like, I feel the same way too. A lot of things escape, and when you're with someone who was around there from that time and experienced the same thing that you did, and they have a story about it, it's the greatest thing, because it brings you back, and then you start to remember like just fragments of the thing. But he was very, very happy about me telling him that story. And then the rest of the shows, James would scream out pancakes right before that part, and it was it's pretty funny. And a friend of mine made this shirt for me. I cracked up when I saw it with the pancakes. It was great. So I had to wear it for this.
It's a beautiful shirt. Beautiful shirt.
Yeah.
And people will be able to order that shirt or a very similar shirt during this broadcast. And the proceeds go to the Cliff Burton Scholarship at the Castro Valley High School. So we'll have links down below and on the websites for it as well. But boom, there's our shirt, guys. Very cool. Very cool.
And actually, a drawing that I did of Cliff is also going to be made into a shirt too. It's like I just saw this image of Cliff and I just wanted to do it, so I sketched it out and painted it, and then put the Master of Puppets crosses behind him, like a whole background of it, and I'm sure you'll show it on this in the back, as we're talking.
Boom. We're looking at it right now, right there. There we
We're
go.
looking at it right now. There it is. I didn't see it.
Back on that Master Puppets European gig, do you remember the gig where the audience showed support by spitting on the band?
Well, that was really a punk thing. You know what I mean? That spitting on the band thing was a punk thing. They used to spit on all the punk bands.
Mm-hmm.
So, wherever you went, there was always a potential for that, because a lot of the punks were like into the metal thing as well. So you would have people who would come and would think, oh yeah, I'll show my appreciation for that good solo and I will spit in your face. How ridiculous,
Yeah, what do they do if they don't like you? Throw roses?
It was disgusting. This carried over from the punk days, and they would spit. And it was a lot of it was in Wales, I remember, Cardiff, and Ireland too. And I'll never forget watching, because I was always in the back playing my drums, so I could duck, but the guys in the front were just getting hit. And I remember seeing them spitting, when I was watching the Metallica set, and Kirk just had spit dripping off his hair. It was disgusting.
That whole tour, except for the last date, you had John Marshall on stage with you.
Yes.
What was the energy like as a 5-piece?
It was different. It was very different. I mean, John's lovely. I mean, he's great and a great guitarist.
Mm-hmm.
James without a guitar is a bit weird when you used to sing with a guitar. In fact, Cliff's last gig, I think, was James's first one playing again.
Correct. Yeah.
So it was the first time it had been sort of back to normal, if you know what I mean. It felt really good. Everybody was kind of happy about it, because it was like, oh, the band are a band again,
Mm-hmm. Cliff did the national anthem on stage, which is really cool because, he's giving a shout out to his home country. The crowd was super, super into them that night, so much so that it took a really long time to leave. Everybody was saying goodbye to the audience, and Cliff was actually the last person to leave the stage of that night.
Yeah, well, and the band were really excited because it was the first time James had played guitar again. So it was, once again, it was Metallica as it was supposed to be.
Do you have any memories of the last show that was played on that tour?
Mm-hmm.
What particular good things stood out about that day?
James got his cast off,
mm-hmm.
and he was going to play a little bit that night. And I thought their show was awesome. I thought it was so far the best show of the tour. Maybe it's because James was back in it, you know what I mean? And everybody mentally just kind of felt it too. But for the most part, we hung out all day in the catering room and stuff like that. And then after the show, we were all back in the catering room and planning our day off in Denmark the next day, what we all going to do. Yeah, let's go do this. Let's go shopping. Let's go, see a movie, go get some drinks. And then we all just ended up leaving. See you tomorrow.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. The last thing I ever said to Cliff, actually, was he'd run out of hash. on our drive, and as they got on the bus to leave, he came. They left before us, or did they? Oh no, we left before them. He came on the bus and said, "Mick, I've run out of anything to smoke," so I just gave him a piece, and off he went, and that was the last thing ever. So he smoked it because when I went to get the personal possessions off the bus that was crashed after the accident, I found a roach that he'd smoked, and the piece of hash was smaller. Because he was stoned when he went, definitely.
And we went before they did, so we got to Denmark before them, and then that's when there was a message at the hotel that there was an accident, and we had all just woken up. We had gotten a bus for the Scandinavian portion and the European portion, but in the UK we didn't have a bus, so we finally got a bus, and I remember there were fans out. There were 2 fans outside the hotel, and I remember walking out of and then saying to us, "Did you hear what happened to Metallica? They were in a accident," but we didn't know anything because there was no cell phones, there was nothing. And then our tour manager got the message, but nope, there was no talk of any death or anything like that. Minutes after that, we got the word that there was a death and Cliff had died, and just we all just refused to believe it. It's impossible. There's got to be something wrong. You know what I mean? It's got to be misinformation, because they said something about icy roads, but there was no icy roads. There was no snow.
If anybody in the Bay Area that's my age or a little older, we all remember exactly where we were when we heard that Cliff had died.
And then, like I said, I get the phone call on a Sunday morning early, which is, it was strange to get a call that early in the morning. I was still at my parents' house, and it was shocking.
So I got the call from Dave Mars, who was their original drum tech, and he called me from LA. And that was the next day that it happened. So news traveled fast. It wasn't like, we had to wait to hear about it on the radio, where even if it had, who knows, I don't even know if it would have been reported at the radio, on the radio at that point, because, they weren't being played on FM stations sort of thing.
Yeah. Somebody who worked for one of the local newspapers called me up and said, "Hey, did you hear about what happened to Metallica in Europe?" I said, "No, what happened?" He said, "Yeah, Cliff, they had a bus accident. Cliff was killed." I was like, "Wait, what?"
And then we all just went to the room and just tried to regroup and find more information out. And then we finally got to a phone, and that's when all the information started to become, real. And that's when it became real. It was just a weird situation, because the only time I had dealt with death was when I was young, like when I lost my dad, but I was 5 years old and I really didn't understand anything. So here I was like 20 years old and dealing with a friend's death, and it was just heartbreaking. And then later, the Metallica bus came, and we were just with those guys. It felt like for hours, and it was just horrible. And then that night ended, and we woke up the next day going, what do we do? We don't know what to do. And we stayed in Denmark, I believe, for like two days, and then we all went back home. And Scott actually went to the funeral. I didn't have any money to fly to San Francisco. but if I did, I would have been there.
C is in the alphabet, and how impressed I was with this very short and very loving poem about him. He was a wonderful kid, and I think the composer or the writer of the book and the artist and Metallica have done a very good job. And I want to thank you all very much, and you have a very, very good year. So toodaloo until I talk to you the next time. Get my throat clear. Okay, toodaloo.
1986 isn't an easy year to talk about. It was, particularly difficult for everybody in the interviews who did talk about it. And I want to say thank you to everybody who shared those stories. I didn't want to do 1986 as the end of the story because I don't think Cliff ended in 1986. I think he only became bigger and stronger and more in the cosmos after that time in his life. So, that's why we're here today, celebrating Cliff Burton's 60th birthday. Just like Mike Bordin said, think about it, 60. That's a long time. That's how much this earth and universe, whatnot, has been blessed with the music of Cliff Burton. The cool about the Cliff Burton family, if you follow them on Facebook or Instagram or whatnot, they donate a lot of money to a lot of different funds, a lot of scholarships, a lot of different things. And one of them is the Castro Valley High School Cliff Burton Scholarship Fund. So I actually have a video here from the principal of Castro Valley High School. So enjoy.
Hello, my name is Blaine Torpy, and I have the honor and privilege of being the principal of Castro Valley High School. I'm happy to be invited to be here with you today to celebrate Cliff Burton Day. Cliff Burton went to Castro Valley High School, was born in Castro Valley, and his legacy is something that's really important to us as a school. First and foremost, we are deeply grateful to the Burton family who have for over 20 years participated in the Cliff Burton Scholarship Fund. They have allowed us to give over $75,000 to our students at Castro Valley High School who study music. Some of them are studying orchestra, violin, and some of them are just good old-fashioned rockers. So thank you to the Burton family. Thank you for helping keeping the legacy of Cliff Burton alive at Castro Valley High School, to honor his memory, to honor his work, and I think most importantly, to honor the power of music. Each and every one of you knows that music can change lives, can save lives, and makes things for all of us so much better. So, Burton family, thank you so much for continuing to share the legacy with us. Cliff Burton Day fans, thank you for being here. And a special shout out to Ms. Jennifer Jervis, who created the Cliff Burton Stair Memorial at Castro Valley High School. It's pretty cool. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for keeping Castro Valley High School in your thoughts and on your team.
Yeah, shout out to Jennifer Jervis for creating that Cliff Burton Stairs mosaic. Cliff Burton Day, I want to say 2020, I think. I could be wrong. Sorry, there's been a few of them now. Yeah, we all got these little tiles, and everybody, decorate them for Cliff, and she made this really beautiful, beautiful stairs out of it. I believe it's in the music building area. So if you're in Castro Valley, definitely stop by there, check it out. Let's see. I'm going to do some switching right here. The next video I have is from Tristan Swanson. He was the most recent recipient of the Cliff Burton Scholarship Fund in Castro Valley. So he sent us a little video.
Hello everyone, my name is Tristan Swanson, and I have just recently been awarded with the Cliff Burton Scholarship Fund. And from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank the Burton family for doing what they have done for me in these past few months. I can't put it into words how grateful I am for your support, and the money and the opportunity to come here onto this live stream and be able to be a part of Cliff's legacy is more than anything I could have ever dreamed of. The scholarship is amazing. But this opportunity to come on here is mind-boggling, and I'm so unbelievably grateful to the Burton family and to everyone who has supported me to get to where I am today. I thank you so much, and I can't fathom having ever made it to this point, to actually be a part of Cliff's legacy and be able to help spread his message and his love for music is a dream come true to me. And the scholarship will help me so much more than anyone could ever know. I'm so grateful for it. And that amount of money the scholarship has provided me with will go so much farther than anyone could ever have thought. I can't express enough gratitude. That's so much money for me to be able to put towards my music career and not have to worry about being able to afford rent the next month. And I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. I plan on using the scholarship to get as much equipment as I can that could potentially help me further my musical capabilities. Of course, I plan on spending some of it to help my band. We only have one single out, and it's been so difficult trying to work it out. It's so difficult trying to find the time and the resources to practice. But we give it our all, and this scholarship is going to help so much in allowing us to all further our musical aspirations. And again, I can't thank the Burton family enough. I can't thank Metallica enough for doing everything they've done for me. You guys don't realize it, but it's because of you guys that I'm able to sit here today and have the greatest achievement of my life come to me. And of course, I want to thank Cliff, because if it wasn't for Cliff, I don't know where I'd be right now. And his music and his love of life and music has changed who I am as a person, and I can't thank him enough for having changed my life and having changed so many other people's lives. Thank you, Cliff. Here's to you, Cliff.
Damn, Tristan, dude. I couldn't even post the comments fast enough, dude, with that mad love the universe is giving you. Dude, you made us super proud, man. Thank you very much. Whew, that was amazing, dude. Dude. That's all I got to say about that. Oh, man, yes. There's the comments right there. You guys, in the comment section, send us your love, dude. Ask us questions, share the support. The cool thing about this Cliffburton community is it's nothing but love, dude. Like, Cliff influenced us to be musicians, but Cliff also influenced to be good people. So this is cool, dude. I'm stoked, dude. Cliffburton Day, it's here. We're doing it. I can't believe it was a year since the last one, and now it's already here today. I don't want this to end at all. Since we're moving along on the Cliff Burton story, we are in 1985 next. Yep, check out my notes right there. So let me get this next video ready, and hope you guys like what we are doing. Yeah, almost. There we go. Something soon.
And so I'm on my way over there, I guess. And I see Cliff driving in that green Volkswagen, right? So you know it's him. He's the only guy in the Bay Area that's got one of these things, right? And so he's just speeding along, and I was in my truck, and I pulled up next to him, and I go, roll down the way, hey! He goes, oh, hey! He goes, pull over. And this was on the Gilman Street exit in Berkeley. And I said, okay. So I pull up. He's by himself. I'm by myself. And we pull up to the stop sign. And he says to me, hey, can you, like, I don't know, run over and get some beers or something like that? It was something, like that. And I go, yeah, sure, no problem. All of a sudden, these two hippies start walking across the crosswalk, and there was this huge Grateful Dead show going on over at the Oakland Arena, and so obviously you got to tell they were part of that deal, even though we were in Lower Berkeley. But they came walking across it was a man and a woman, boy and girl, whatever you want to call them. They were young. They're walking across, and all of a sudden, one of them yells out, "Hey, can we get a ride?"
The hippies see him in his station wagon. It almost looks like a hippie mobile, and they see him probably looking like a hippie.
His red hair and his freaking denim on. It's like, oh, he was one of us.
Yeah, that's one of us.
And Cliff looks over at me like this, and he goes, "Yeah, get in." And so, and then they looked and they said, where are you going? He goes, "I'm going to hell, man. Get in."
Everyone, hi Cliff, how you doing?
They played the 85. They played the Kabuki, and like those are big deals because it was. I think it was after Dan Green or whatever, the same time frame. So they're just about to go to the next level. But so at that time, kids knew who they were, and any other band just would have started. Maybe that would have started affecting how they would act at their own shows. This like sequester backstage and whatever. But I remember the Kabuki show was like Ride the Lightning Tour. It was like next level stuff. And I think the second night we walked in and Cliff was hanging out in the lobby. Like he's the headliner. Everybody is there to see him.
Yeah.
And Cliff was hanging out in the lobby just shooting the shit with kids. He was a regular dude and he was home. And he, it was, he was just hanging out. And
but we had a lot of good times, and some of my favorite memories are just, I have a photo on the wall right here. Let me grab it. Yeah. Or just playing shows, like when we'd play a show without Metallica, these guys would be in the front row, James, Cliff, and all that. And here we go. Right here in a full-on Rage headbang. Let me see. Is Cliff right there, right there, right under my finger, and right here is James. And there's my friend Dave Conley, my dead friend Mike Street, my dead friend Ronnie Schwartz, and way in the back is Rich Birch. Also, so, and I have photos of like Cliff and Corinne on the side of the stage, just raging, you know, when we played like the Mabuhay Gardens, you know, and stuff. And we always supported each other like that. You know, we'd be in the crowd, you know, back then, you know, no one viewed each other as, you know, like, you know, no one was, we have to stand in the back and be cool, or where's my VIP table? You know, we were all there the same as everybody else was, you know.
You know, when we arrived, like, it was just like no time had passed, like, what's going on, da, da, da. But like, again, it was like one of those things where like we didn't really appreciate, at least I didn't appreciate at the time, but again, it was like with James at that Maiden show and then Cliff at his own show, like kids were starstruck. And you know, at that time, you know, I couldn't really comprehend, like, why are you starstruck? It's just Cliff, like, sort of deal.
Cliff literally had people knocking on his door at his house with his parents asking for autographs. And the cool thing is he'd crawl out of bed at noon, put a shirt on, and go sign an autograph for a little kid. It's cool that it never changed him. Did you see any kind of change in personality with Cliff?
None. You know, and again, you know, even as they got as big as they did when he was with the band, like, he was still Cliff from Castro Valley, you know?
Yeah.
And that was it. So just like in San Francisco, there was a scene, and I always thought it was cool that those guys had a great scene out there. And they loved metal, you know? I'll never forget the first time we went there and meeting all these other people from other bands, and they were all for that movement, you know what I mean? Metal. And it was just a way of life. And yeah, I had so much respect for all those bands up there. They were doing it, you know, and it was a great scene.
But you know, it's not that people didn't recognize him, but because there's another story where, like, you know, around that 84, 85 when things were about to happen, and there's this local San Jose skater band called The Faction, and they're pretty legendary because like the main guy is Steve Caballero, and so anyway, but like they're a local skate punk band, and like they were playing in downtown San Jose, and they were playing at like, it was like a rec center, but we went to see them because like they're like one of the new local punk bands, and Cliff showed up because Yngwie Malmsteen, if I remember correctly, Yngwie was playing down the street at the San Jose Civic, and this rec hall or whatever was on the way, and the friends he was with knew about the show. So Cliff showed up at the show, and like my friend and I were like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing here? And like one of the friends who was with him, I had forgotten this part about it, but years later, the mutual friend who was at the show, like, remembered like some of the punks tried to start a fight with Cliff because he was a long hair, because he was a long hair, and like, long hairs didn't belong at punk shows. So like these punks started messing with Cliff at this Faction show because he was like a long-haired whatever, and then like one of the punks recognized him, like, because so it was like at that moment when like people outside of the metal scene were becoming aware of Metallica. So even at this rec center punk show, like one of the punks recognized Cliff and told the other dudes, like, dude, like
back off,
he's cool, like, don't. But like Cliff didn't care. Like Cliff just took it in stride.
It's funny too because Cliff is a punk himself.
Yeah, but that's what's so ironic too. Like if the punks only knew, like he was more ahead of the curve with punk than those kids were, probably, because you know he was in the Misfits and Discharge and all that stuff. So it's pretty. But again, like that's, you can't tell a book by its cover, and like you know, just what we were talking about before, where like, you know, people just always say like Cliff was the most metal member of Metallica, and like he wasn't. Like he was the most punk member of Metallica, if anything. So I mean, it's just like, again, like around that time frame, 84, 85, when you know there was like this little shining moment when it was just our scene, and it was just our little scene for like summer 84 or so, and then after that's when things started going like that, and so then that's when things like that started happening, where you know Cliff would get recognized in public at an underground punk show in a, you know, maybe 50 people in a rec center in downtown San Jose, and like somebody knew who he was.
You could definitely feel there was something happening, but when you're in the moment, you don't really think too much about it because you're just in the moment, and it is what it is. But you could feel there was an underground thing. But again, we never in a million years ever thought this was going to be anything other than just a big underground thing.
When was the first time you arrived at a venue and realize that this is starting to get really big?
You could tell there was something going on with the band at the beginning. When we turn up at little venues, people were queuing around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
No, and you didn't. I'd toured those venues, some of those venues before, and you never had that. You didn't see the level of, conviction of the fans. And the band really, they were really good with the kids. They would always talk to everybody and sign whatever they wanted. They would sit there. They would stay after the gig had finished and carry on signing stuff.
How do you think they got so big in those smaller states, smaller cities? Because no internet back then, no MySpace, no Facebook. Like, how did the news travel?
Because they would play there all the time. This is I've told bands for years. I mean, it's a little bit different now, like you said, with YouTube and stuff. But Metallica played everywhere. Even in the early days, they would go to North Dakota or South Dakota or Montana or places that bands don't go. Boise, Idaho. I mean, they would always do that, and that's a big reason why they were as big as they were, because they would go to these places even when they were huge.
The second I hear that song, I see Dan the Green, and I see, hey, everybody say hi to Cliff, and then
hi, Cliff, how you doing?
Yeah, and then it kicks into that, and I never forget the people just start tearing up that turf. They start going crazy. Bill Graham's furious. What the hell is going on? And it was the changing of the guard, and it just had so much to do with Cliff, but that chemistry finally coming together.
You also say that Cliff's energy on stage produced the band to have higher energy as well. Like, he brought the element.
Absolutely. Like I said, Cliff used to entertain them as much as he would entertain the audience. He was Cliff's natural default. Just him playing. He couldn't, I don't think he could really play, just stand and play.
Mm-hmm.
He would have to headbang in some way or other, whether there's anybody around or not. I mean, even when he was in his hotel room and he was on the bed jumping up and down, he was headbanging there on his own, his room, So him on stage was really, what he did up there was his default setting of just playing his bass. So, and you couldn't help but watch what he was doing because he never stopped.
Mm-hmm.
With the long hair and, the flares, unique personality with a unique approach to absolutely everything he did, really.
So how old were you on that day, August 30th, 1985?
I just got out of high school, so I would say I was 19, because 84 was the graduation year, and then summer, probably 19, working. I got some pictures from that. I'm in the parking lot with some buddies.
Sick.
We're drinking, and I remember Bill Graham pulled up in a golf cart, and we were there early, like 9 a.m. And he pulled up in this golf cart and he goes, "Hey, go inside before you get in trouble." And we're like, "Holy shit, that's Bill Graham."
That's Bill Graham.
And we're minors drinking in the lot. That's what you did. You got to Dan the Green, you drank, you maybe drove the Malibu cars. They had a Malibu Grand Prix next to it.
Nice.
And then we went in.
It just went off. And then so I think it all culminated when they played Dan the Green in 85, because everything that had been building, they'd been away and come back, and they put out Ride the Lightning, and then they played Dan the Green. And Dan the Green, when you grew up in the Bay Area, it was it was sort of it was a rite of passage to attend the Dan the Green, because it was at Oakland Stadium, it was all day. In high school, junior high, my friend and I, we would leave. We lived in the burbs. We lived in Sunnyvale. We would leave at midnight to go get in line, because that it was back then. We were the age where you have to be up front. If you're at a concert, you have to be up front, and in order to do that, you had to get there early. So we'd leave the house at midnight, get in line at Oakland Stadium at 2 a.m. or whatever. And back then Dan the Green was the first band would go on at 10 in the morning,
Mm.
which is unheard of now. Like, you know, like the first band would go on at 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
And so, like, you know, but it was a rite of passage. Like any kid who was into rock music in the Bay Area in that generation, you know, you go to a Day in the Green because, you know, every band would play it. And, you know, it was, if you didn't go, you weren't cool almost.
Day on the Green being quite significant because it was in Oakland, just
Yes.
miles away from Cliff Burton's hometown of Castro Valley. So for him to see that stage, you know, as a child, go to those ball games, and then at the age of 23, be on that stage, has to be incredibly magical for him and all his friends who are in the audience.
You know, I think when you look at the footage of it, you know, that the famous shot of Cliff with his foot on the wedge, you can see they're all having a great time. It was electric. You know, it was fun, and good times. Cliff was just Cliff performed for himself, I think. I don't know for sure. I don't know if anybody else has said anything, but as much as he was performing for the audience, it's like he was entertaining the band as well. You know what I mean? They all looked to Cliff. Once that hair started flying and that big headbang went on, it's like, whoa, you know? I mean, it's like the first time he stamped on his Morley wah-wah pedal. I'm like, what is that? Because it was like probably times 10 the volume, that the basically. And it wasn't a case of featuring it as a solo, turning it up. It was a case of turning it down when the Morley came on. It wasn't a case of going, oh, he's playing a solo. There was no question he was playing a solo or doing some sound effects. He did some fantastic sound effects with that Morley. From absolutely nowhere, you would have like a "ow" happen or something where he just stamped on it for a second. But it really, really was exciting stuff, and it worked. You know, he was unique, and I've never heard it since, and I'm sure I won't. You know, it was just Cliff doing what Cliff did.
I mean, like I said, Bell Tolls is a total game changer as far as this beautiful showpiece for Cliff Burton.
Yeah, bass-driven song.
Oh yeah, and it's just the Morley. And the way he really digs into it live, where he really with the long throw on the Morley, like the wow, bum, bum, wow, you know, it's I've studied that footage. I was at the show, but I've watched that footage over and over, and I've looked at the set list on the side of the amps. I looked at those orange ice coolers up there.
The little cooler he carried with him.
Yeah. And I'm watching Lars just fucking kill it. And seeing his dreams come true, the dude from Europe, you know, and just Hetfield, you know, up there. He's still not the mighty Hetfield yet.
He's still relying on Cliff. He looks over to Cliff to like get that courage, I guess. I'd say.
Yeah.
So anyway, when for Metallica to play a Day in the Green, it was mind blowing because you know it was like something that we had all grown up attending, and then all of a sudden our friends were playing a Day in the Green, and then you know, and then they played there, you know, how many ever 45,000 people were there that day or something. So it wasn't just like the core, however many thousand, maybe 1,000, because you know the scene in our heads was big, but in reality it was
funny to hear the story where Cliff's at home just kind of jamming in his bedroom, getting ready. I guess his girlfriend's there. And then his mom or somebody comes in and goes, well, what time you got to be there? And he goes, oh, now. And I heard he got in his he had like a junker truck or VW or something. He's driving and then he gets there and there's like traffic and he just gets out and starts running all the way around backstage. And then he doesn't have a pass. You know,
they don't think he's actually in a band.
Yeah, I'm going on. And they're like, yeah, get out of here, you know? So I don't know if that's real, but that was a great story I had read about 10 years ago about Cliff's experience of going to the Day in the Green. And I could just imagine Cliff, you know, just sitting there getting ready and then like
smoking a joint or something.
Yeah, no concept of time. Like, oh my God, I got to be there now, you know? It's wild. And then they destroyed the dressing room and Bill was furious, said you'll never play again. And then James had to go to Bill's office Monday. Yeah, I love that story. And then next time they fucking headline there, he covers the whole backstage in plastic as a joke. So
was the sort of thing where like I went to work like the next week or something, and some guy, some coworker was there, and he was at the Dan the Green to see Scorpion. He was there to see the headliner, the bands who were being played on the radio. And he had come away from that show being a Metallica fan. So was that? So that's how it's supposed to work. You play a big show when you're a smaller band, and then you get that many more fans.
Yeah.
But again, how accelerated things were back then. It just seemed like the golden year of '84, when it was still our scene, and then '85, especially around here after they played Dan the Green, it was just like this.
Boom.
It was
Metallica shirts everywhere walking down the street.
Everywhere. At least, in the Bay Area. And plus, it played in the, hometown pride.
Man, like I said, when I was talking to you on the phone, I just think that one of the greatest memories of all time for me is that day on the Green. And I'll never forget it. And it was really a day that probably pushed me to think like, shit, man, they did it. Maybe I can do it. And it pushed me to keep going. It's like they made it. And here I am at 55, still doing art and still trying to make it. But you got that fuel in you from those dudes in that day. And that day was a really, really magic day, because you could think about that band could have went on and anything could happen. You could choke, you could go on, and maybe the giant Scorpions rat crowd don't understand it. The suburbs kids or whatever, but it was the day that they came out with both fists swinging, and everybody in there left and changed their lives. Everyone in that place. I know it for a fact, because if you run into anybody, it's a lot like Woodstock. They're like, oh yeah, Metallica that day. Oh man, bells toll. Oh, that's it, man. That is it. That is the high water mark of metal right in there that day.
That was the high water mark of metal that day, as Dean Delray stated. Yeah. Thanks, Dean, for coming on the show. That was really cool of you to chat. He was the first person I was able to interview for the show, so that was pretty tight. Reading the chats, saying what's up to everybody. Corrine, hello. Thank you for giving me a call yesterday, getting me hyped, getting me ready for the show. I want to talk to you guys about the Cliffburton Museum. There's going to be a Cliffburton Museum in Sweden. It's tentatively going to open May 14th. It's in association with the Burger Cultural and Tourism. So they sent me a little statement, and it says, inside this museum, they've built a replica small stage that has the remnants of the stage from Cliff's last show. The museum will be about Cliff's life and his time in the band. For the most part, the exhibition will be around the fans' relationship with Cliff, their tribute, and their memory of Cliff. Those on board are very careful to continue to build on what the fans have started in regards to Cliff Burton in a humble way. Another goal of the museum is to create another meeting place for those who travel from all corners of the world to visit the memorial stone in Sweden. So they say, hope to see you there. And that's from the Cliffburton Board Museum. And you know what? I think I have a photo of these dudes and dudettes. Let me just take a quick look. Here we go. Boom. There we go. That's the team that's making the Cliffburton Museum. That's going to be super cool. And just another way that the world shows love for Cliff. Let's see, what else do we have on list? We have a lot of cool stuff coming up. So, you know what, actually, last year, a buddy of mine sent a video and I wasn't able to play it. I just, had so many things going on. And this year I saved it and, why not play it this year? So here we go.
All right. So, this is for Cliff Burton. And first of all, thanks for having an East Coast guy on. It's me. I got a death metal shirt on. So Cliff, tall, skinny dude who played bass, liked to smoke weed. That should probably sound familiar for anybody who knows me. But I I got to know Cliff as well as I got to know him when Metallica first came over to the East Coast. We did bond over smoking weed and playing bass, and I've definitely picked up some influences having distortion. I later got into, Venom and Discharge, but Cliff might have been the first one who hit me to that. And one particular instance I do remember is when Scott, Ian, and I came to our Anthrax rehearsal room in Jamaica, Queens, where Metallica was staying in the next room, and we saw James and Cliff in the lobby of the building. We said, "What's up, dudes?" And James goes, "We threw Dave out this morning. We're going to get our new guitar player. He's going to be in soon." And Scott was flabbergasted and went, "Bullshit." And Cliff looked at him and went, "Bullshit, bullshit." And as we all know, two bullshits make a truth. Perhaps not a brutal truth, but a truth. So, it's been about 38 years since that time, so details are a little scant, but Cliff was a great fucking dude. The band was never the same after the tragic event that happened in September '86. So, Cliff, I'm going to send this out to you, and it was great knowing you, brother.
Hope you like our little disclaimer at the bottom, YouTube and Twitch. So let's see. You guys know, let me pull up the comment section real fast. You guys know Harold O? Yeah. Really cool dude. Photographed many awesome Metallica and Cliff photos. Yeah. Well, he sent me a video that I want to share with you guys. So give me a moment right here. So this is from your buddy and mine, Harold O.
He'd go on one of those rants about killing posers on stage, and if there were posers in the crowd, they worried.
My grandmother makes more noise than that. My grandmother makes more noise than that. My grandmother makes more noise than that.
My grandmother can make more noise than that, and she's dead.
Murder! Front row! Murder! There's a murder in the fucking front row! There's a murder in the front row! There's a murder in the front row! There's a murder in the front row! Let me tell you all a tale about our local scene. This happened in the 80s when most of us were teens. Ruthy's was our hangout, they served us underage. Lots of crazy characters, like kids until we rage. An evil bad like Slayer. We hate about it, crew like poisons in the gear. And a murder in the front row. And a murder in the front row. And a murder in the front row. We love the music heavy, and we liked it fast. I broke my leg at DRI and had to wear a cast. Right across the street was a big old tire lot. You will bring a six-pack, I will bring a pot. Slayer showed no mercy and taught us hell awaits. The sex were still in high school and they had shitty grades.
life, man. They love going crazy with helicopter shots. Yeah! And the King felt afraid.
Harold sending that in. It was pretty cool seeing all those old photos. I also saw some new ones in there from the event I believe was called Slaughter by the Water. I think I know the dude who threw that. It's pretty cool. So you know what, Mike, you want to pop in for a minute? We haven't heard from you in a little while. Let's bring Mike in. Oh, he kicked him out. There we go. What's up, dude? Uh-oh. Yeah, let's turn your mic on. There we go. Boom. One more time, my man.
I'm almost 60. It's past my bedtime.
Dude, you can't go to bed yet. We have 3 more good videos to go through. So
Hey, Tristan Swanson.
yes,
He's just full of metal, dude. Dear God, man, that was fabulous. Fabulous. Wow, fabulous. Go ahead.
yeah, Tristan, you're the man, dude.
Nicely done, Harold. Great job, Harold. It's a kick-ass piece. A lot of funny stuff in there. A nice Jello Biafra take in that punk rock part. Don't let me take you off the rails, dude. Keep talking.
No, okay, for sure. Anyways, let's get back into it. Let me pull up this next video. The next year we have is 1984.
Can I say something real quick? Is that okay?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Give me one moment. Boom. What do you want to say, my man?
Talking about that day in the green, I think that what Dean said was super spot on point. I went on purpose to the very top deck, very back of that venue, because I wanted to see what Metallica was doing to all the people in front of me.
Sick. Oh yeah.
I watched Zeppelin play there twice, you know, and every other band, whatever, all the, like you said, all the days in the greens, all that shit going on. But to watch Metallica destroy that day in the green early, you know, in the day, you know, before the lights took effect, before the smoke machines, you know, kicked on, they were early. I don't know how early they were. I don't know if they opened or not, but they were early, and it was, you could tell that it was going off right then, and nothing was going to stop it.
That's so cool. And to see it from the perspective of the entire stadium.
I had to go to the very back. Yeah, and I seem to remember Jen and Ray somewhere being back there too, just trying to take it all in. It was just, you knew it was happening. You knew they were the chosen band. They had a rocket, you know, strapped up their ass, and they were ready to go, and they weren't going to mess it up. I mean, you just had to get with them or get out of the way, because it was inevitable. I think it was just, they were bound for glory, you know. They had something special, like Mick said, and they were bound for glory, man. And it was just unbelievable to watch, just unbelievable.
Right on, right on. Well, we're gonna get back into this next one, my man. Here we go.
Cliff told me one time, I don't know if it's true or not, but it sure was funny. I was telling him about this guy's funny name one time, and Cliff goes, "That's nothing. I went to school with a guy named Walter Mellon."
So what year did you start with the band?
I started November 1984. Cliff was the first person I spoke to from the band.
Nice.
Yeah, he actually asked me if I knew anywhere he could score something to smoke, which I obliged, of course. And we became firm smoking buddies from that point on. You know, we were stoners. What can I say? You know.
Ah, beautiful.
You know, but for the most part, you know, he had his own clique, you know, his own group of friends, like, you know, Mike Bordin and Jim Martin and, you know, Dave Donato and, you know, a few others.
Good first impression of Cliff.
Oh, fantastic. You know, but, you know, he had an aura about him anyway. You could always feel he was a very kind guy, you know, good soul, good heart, you know, and you could tell that. I gravitated to Cliff straight away. It was just like he was just a bit hillbilly, I suppose, as an English guy. He was a bit different. You know, this guy comes in and the way the choice of words that they Castro Valley guys use. I mean, Jim Martin's the same. Jim's a friend of mine.
Those guys in Castro Valley, I don't know if you've noticed it, but the real guys from Castro Valley from back in the day, they all sound the same.
And Jim, when I talk to Jim, it's like talking to Cliff. And there's a different phraseology they use, and it's really intriguing to talk to somebody that speaks. It's almost eloquent, but basic. It's very bizarre.
There is an accent in that town from that era. And if somebody starts talking, I already know where they're from, who they're probably friends with. But there's got to have been some sort of click.
It's fun. It's a fun thing. So, you know, as soon as you started speaking to Cliff, it was there, and I found it refreshing. So to have him as my smoking buddy was kind of good times.
And there's another guy out there too, Tony Martin. He sounds just like Cliff and Jim and the rest of the guys. And I just go, God, now another Castro Valley guy sounds just like him, you know? So whenever I see the older guys and they kind of talk like that, I go, from Castro Valley? Yeah, nice, I know Cliff. You know,
both cool, interesting people, Jim and Mike, and I can see the same flavor or same style, you know, that Cliff exuded back then is travels on with Mike and Jim both. So, you know, it must be in the Castro Valley water or something like that.
Oh, it is.
I mean, those guys, wow. I mean, pleasure to hang out with both, you know. But the actual thing from Castro Valley, it's very strong.
Right on.
Yeah, it's great. They got their own language.
From Castro Valley myself, and we hold the Cliffburton flag very strong. Like, that's our claim to fame. That's our pride and joy in our whole town.
Oh, that's fantastic. And couldn't be for a nicer person. Very deserving. The guy was really, really nice, you know. Very sad what happened. But he lived his life to the full while he was around. I mean, I had some fun with him, and he was just, wow, he was on fire all the time. He was just a lit-up sort of person.
84 in my mind was like the golden year, because it was right, I mean, as far as the Bay Area scene goes, like 84, going into 85 was like the golden time for me, because it was right when it was still small. It was when it was still small, but then right before things got crazy.
So when that record came out, a lot of the underground metal community thought Metallica had sold out because there's acoustic guitars on there and there's more melody. I remember a lot of people called that record when it came out "Ride the Light Bulb." Are you crazy? Of course, those 10% of super hardcore people, you know, left, and a million other people came in, obviously.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. I'll never forget that. It was pretty controversial at the time in our little underground scene, where a lot of people were like, oh, they sold out. There's acoustic guitar on them. Like, what are you guys talking about? Crazy.
Game changer really was Ride the Lightning for me. When that came, it just sounded like a totally different band.
Epic, a whole nother level, you know, just like so killer, you know, and the bass intro to For Whom the Bells Toll is just iconic, you know, it's just can't be touched, you know, and it's a killer album, you know, there's a couple of filler songs on it, in my opinion, and people might yell at me, but I think it also has some of my favorite stuff.
And I remember when I heard Fight Fire with Fire, it was just so fucking fast and furious, man.
Like, I mean, I guess on Ride the Lightning, I could do without Escape, you know, that's.
I think they don't like Escape either, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's pretty poppy, you know,
yeah.
Especially for an album that led off with Fight Fire with Fire.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, get that out of here, you know.
It was great. And the one thing about Kill 'Em All compared to like Ride the Lightning is the bass tone was different, I felt, or the frequencies were different, because Lars's drum sound was a bit fatter on Ride the Lightning than it was on Kill 'Em All. Kill 'Em All was a bit thinner, you know, but Ride the Lightning had a fatter drum tone, and the guitar tone was definitely had a lot more woof to it. You know, it was definitely had a lot of chunk. And Cliff just kind of somehow found his way in there. You know, we used to always say back in the day, if you don't hear Cliff, you feel him. You know, and that was true. You know, you feel him a lot on that record.
You know, people ask me shit like, why do you think Metallica got bigger? I said, because they were better. You know, they really thought things through. Maybe Exodus were too high.
The intro to For Whom the Bell Tolls, you know, where Cliff plays that riff, and it's so identifiable, you know. It's such a great piece, and just the way he comes in, it's just so perfect, you know. It's just a great moment.
The difference between Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning, did you attribute that change to Cliff bringing his musical experience, knowledge, and technicality?
I think there was two things that happened on that record. Is number one, Cliff had been in the band for a while, because really Kill 'Em All was not a lot about him. A lot of that stuff was written before he was there. So yes, absolutely, he brought a lot to the table there, and also just James as a singer becoming a much more confident, really good singer at that point. Those two things were what did it for me, where I was like, man, this album is a gigantic step up from where before, and blew me away. And I mean, Cliff played an integral role on all three of those records, especially the final two he was on, because he was probably more. I mean, James is a virtuoso when it comes to music and stuff, but Cliff had a wider range of influences than those guys did, and you could definitely see some of that coming in, starting with Ride the Lightning.
And I remember the first time reading a review of Metallica in Sounds, and it was like it was like science fiction or something, because Metallica's in Sounds, like, so I mean, so it was that thing. So like they were off conquering the world, but then it was almost like the old stories you hear when people in World War I or something, like they go out, they went off to war, the troops went off to war, and then like you get these letters back, like dear Mom, I'm in the trenches fighting,
playing instruments and stuff. He loved to just jam out in hotel rooms, jumping up and down on his bed, playing various things. I think he used to predominantly play a lead guitar as opposed to a bass. No, I used to have to keep fixing his little amplifier he used to wear on his belt, because he had headphones and he plugged the instrument into this Rockman, I think it was called, or something. And of course he'd jump up and down on the bed, and the thing would end up going up the wall and getting smashed to bits. Then he'd come in and go, Mick, can you fix this for me? I'll be like, yeah, so I was kind of the fix-it guy. I fixed that thing so many times, Oh, the battery leads fell off. Oh, this is that. The socket's broken. I bent the jack over and it snapped off, and it was endless. But he had such fun with that, In all fairness, that was probably the more favourable option to the Japanese throwing stars that he used to have with him, and he would throw in the wall in hotels, and if you ended up being in the room next to him, all you could hear was thump, 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 and the only break was the time it took him to get up and retrieve them. Hotels weren't that impressed, in all fairness, with the holes in everything. No, just a character, massive character, Yeah, good guy.
Especially in '84, like the whole Bay Area scene was going off, like, because all these kids were getting engaged and finding about Ruthie's Inn, and like Exodus was playing so much that all these kids who were getting into metal were really getting into the underground stuff, because Exodus were playing so often, and they were cut from the same cloth as Metallica. And then Exodus were driving the scene with all these other bands, and then Metallica came home like in '84 after their first European tour, and they played a secret show at the Mabuhay Gardens, and they billed themselves as Kill 'Em All. It was even in the newspaper, Kill 'Em All. So like it was like
everybody knew at that point.
And I also noticed that when the band kind of came back from Europe, they had, I said this before in an interview, they were kind of somebody that I learned about, like exotic booze from, Jägermeister, and They were drinking Heineken, and they had been to Europe, you know, and in a van. There was just something different about those guys.
It was almost like that. Like Metallica went off to Europe, literally went off to Europe to fight the metal wars, and we'd like get postcards from them, and like, you know, they'd be telling their adventures, and then it was just like, you know, like just like those old war stories, like the home front. Like we get random postcards from them, like they're out there fighting the metal wars, and then we get like newspaper dispatches, like in sounds, like, you know, a show review or album review from, you know, in England, like, you know, and England going off, you know, the English underground metal press going off about Metallica, and then they come home, and it was like, you know, not like, you know, the boys are home, like.
and at the time, I thought they were way older than me, but I'm 55 now. I think James is 59.
We're celebrating Cliff's 60th today, so yeah, a little bit older.
Yeah. So 5 years older. But you know, when you're a kid, let's say you're 16 or 15 and you're seeing the guys around the club, you know, because you're in the club, you're 15. It's so weird to think about now, you know.
Yeah.
15 night all night. But 5 years is a lot, you know.
Especially
these guys have like, they
that
had
portion of their life.
sideburns, you know.
They were the older kids.
Yeah, and they were they had been places. So you know, to me, Cliff always just kind of seemed like this kind of you know, like the bikers in my neighborhood. There was this biker named No Worky Don, and he was scary as fuck. And to me, Cliff just kind of seemed like one of those guys.
Yeah.
He wasn't mean or anything, but it was like, whoa, he's wearing the bell-bottom Levi's and the Levi jacket. He's got the black fingerless gloves on. He had a tattoo. There was only a couple guys back then that had tattoos, one of them being Tom Araya. Other than that, around the scene, there were like 3 dudes that had tattoos.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, he's got a, you know, the fucking Misfit skull, you know?
Maybe he had an older soul I've come to pick up on.
Yeah, and he was older anyway than the other guy. You know, I think Cliff was like, I think he was probably a couple of years older than the rest of the guys. And I don't know. I mean, since meeting the family, Ray, bless him, you know, and Jan, you could see Cliff had a massive common sense streak in him. He had real warmth about him, but a real common sense approach to things. If it was stupid, if something was stupid to do, he would call it as being stupid. He wasn't anybody's fool, but because he was so open with people. You know, when the band rehearsed in Birmingham, my hometown, where I am now, in fact, I had a rehearsal complex there. I owned a lighting and rehearsal place, and the band went in there and rehearsed. And I used to have GBH rehearsing there as well, which was one of the guys' favourites. In fact, I worked for GBH before I worked for Metallica. I mean, I did the first tour of America with GBH in 1981, I think it was. So they got to hang out together. And we had a pub over the road from Concert Lighting, which was the name of the establishment. And they had a pool table. And God, the amount of non-rehearsal that went on, because GBH and Metallica were all over the Fountain pub just across the street, and Cliff was playing pool all night, you know, all day. You know, those guys would just go. They were pretty funny. And Cliff just got on with everybody. You know what I mean? Everybody would gravitate to him because he was such a nice guy to talk to. Like I said, the accent thing goes a long way. I know I got away with it in America for years. Just, you know, it's a bit different now. You used to get, gee, I just love your accent. It's like, no, okay, that's kind of gone now. But it worked in reverse on us too. We like Cliff's accent. And I think everybody felt it. And, you know, and he was fun to play with, as I said, you know. When we gigs on Ride the Lightning, if you couldn't find Cliff, then predominantly Cliff would be in the bar having a beer with the kids. Just standing there chatting. No need to push and shove to talk to him. He would just hang out as long as it took. And half the time you'd be like, Cliff, you got to come because you got to go on stage in a bit, that kind of thing. That's all he liked to do. He was a very sociable person. He liked to hang out, chat to people. And he liked to play pool, I guess.
Nice.
The first time we played club shows before, but when our first album came out, we were doing the whole Raven tour. The last show of the tour was in New York at a place called Roseland. Metallica were also on the bill. So it was Anthrax, Metallica, Raven, and both bands got signed that night. We got Metallica got signed by Elektra, and then we were pursued by another label, which would later become Island Records.
Obviously, being on Megaforce was a great start. But at that point, I'm an independent label too, and I had no qualms with any band signing the major label. So we're just a tiny little label. We can't do anything next to what the major labels were doing. So I was very happy that they went there, and happy after I met Alago that he was a cool guy and a metal guy too. So he understood how things should be done. And he wasn't gonna, because a lot of times what happens when these bands get signed to major labels, the major labels come in and they want them to be different and they screw the thing up. But I knew Alago wasn't going to do that. So that was good. I was happy for them.
At that moment, did you know things were really changing?
Oh yeah, that show is when I realized people like this. There's a sound and a style that is resonating with teenagers, and this is it. This is the future. Me myself, I was 20 years old, maybe around that time. It's crazy to think that I was on tour when I was like 19, 20 years old, it's nuts. Right out of school and stuff. So most of us were the same age, and we were just experiencing life on the road, experiencing the world. The first time I had to get a passport, it was like, how do I do this?
To be in your mid-20s and be a part of a movement that's happening worldwide, and to see it grow from 2 years prior has to be amazing.
It was, and it was so organic. It just happened.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. How'd you like that segment, Mike?
It's powerful stuff, man. I'm kind of riveted in my seat to it. And I know a lot of the stuff about it, but yeah.
Yeah, most people, when they talk about Cliff, they also have to talk about the scene and how big of a movement it was as a whole. And like Big Mick said, it's just like an organic growth. It's pretty cool to learn about.
Speaking of somebody who spent some time in Castro Valley, can I say it was hella cool?
Castro Valley is hella cool. Everybody working on this broadcast right now, all three of us, are all from Castro Valley. Castro Valley's tight, dude.
I mean, that we heard about Rich Birch, though. Toby Rage and the great Paul Bailoff. Because a lot of people, as the reason why we're here, a lot of people gave everything and didn't make it. And like one of the dudes was saying about the sort of rock postcards, that was Brian saying for the rock postcards for the run. I mean, it was a battle, man. We all believed in what we believed in, and we're ready to kind of go down fighting or victory or death.
Yeah, you're literally going overseas to fly the metal
flag.
It was.
Yeah. That's what it was. It was a long campaign, and we were all about it.
And look where you guys all are 40 years later, dude. Like legendary careers seen in our backyard.
Less hearing, less brain cells, fuzzy memories, but Harold's got pictures.
There you go. See? Right on, Harold, for the photos.
What can you say? It's like you just lived it, Well,
I'm glad I'm able to bring you down memory lane, and we have a few more videos coming up.
It's a trip.
Anything you wanted to talk about on the show while we have you?
I thought it was super cool when they're talking about the Ride the Lightning dates that at the Kabuki, you know, that picture, that was this, my friend from Canada, Dave, you know, found that picture. It was me and Cliff walking into sound check one day, you know, last time I had a haircut.
Really?
That was cool. It kind of took me back to, you know, to memories, and met Mick on the bus that night, you know, after one of the shows, first or second, whichever one it was. And, you know, said, this is Mick, he's our sound man, you know, he's from England. I said, oh yeah, English people, they like to smoke hash. Let's you know, let's have a smoke. And he obliged, and you know, he was a righteous dude, and it was a good moment, you know. So,
yeah, I really enjoyed my talk with Mick.
All those memories, yeah, great guy.
I mentioned most of these talks are, you know, 2 hours long, and I had to consolidate them down to something we can watch tonight. But I am going to put out each of the talks on this YouTube channel following this event, you know, maybe one a week or something, because there's so much good details in all these talks. Couldn't fit them all.
The thing too with me, we can jump the track and go sideways just a little bit, but you know, I spent 15 years riding the Crazy Train with Ozzy, you know, and dude, everybody should have a Brummie in their life. You know, the voice, the accent, the poetry, it just massages your ears. You know, it's just beautiful.
Eloquent, really.
I mean, he's talking about Cliff and whatever hillbilly accent or this or that, but you know, the Brummies, man, the guys from Birmingham, they do it right. You know, and it's again, as a dude from Castro Valley, whatever, you know, it was about Sabbath, and it was about Zeppelin, and it was about that stuff. And guess what? It came out of the Midlands. That was the home. What do you call it? The homeland, the land of origin, or whatever the hell you call it for. And you know, Priest was not far back after that, behind them, and you know, so you know, it kind of feeds itself. You know, the Bay Area scene, Birmingham, you know, informed that with Sabbath and Zeppelin the generation earlier, and people coming, you know, now and getting inspired about the Bay Area of that era. You know, it's
Dan, my man. Great talks with Dan. Hey, Dan, I hope you like your segments that I made for you.
It's good people.
Or is it Danny R? Yeah, he was. Like I said, everybody I got to talk to has been really cool. And what I've found out from all these interviews, because I'm really trying to deep dive on like what made a Cliff Burton, like what kind of environment and atmosphere. Cliff Burton surrounded himself with really cool people and really like caring, nice people. At least the ones that I've spoke to.
Hold on
you guys.
again. I mean, it's all out there. I mean, you've uncovered it all. It's like Nick said it. He wasn't a fool, and he didn't suffer fools, and he wasn't prone to bullshit. You know, I mean, if you're real and you come up real and you respect people as real, you know, you can be as funny and goofy and silly and outrageous as you want, you know, but you know, you've got a good sense, and your feet are on the ground, and you're not an asshole. You know, so you can be well-rounded with everything, you know, be a righteous person.
Yeah. And he hung out with the righteous people too. So really cool to be able to talk to everybody.
Hopefully the birds in that flock, you know, or got that feather or whatever. I don't know. You figure it out.
We know. Cool. Well, let's keep moving along this crazy train. I'm really stoked because I got a video sent in by one of my favorite bands, and they performed a really cool Cliff cover. So hope you guys enjoy this. Check it out. Ruby, Omar, fantastic, my dudes. Thank you very much for sending that in. That was super dope. It also fits in the timeline of where we're at because this next video is going to be 1983 and 1982 combined. But before we do that, I'm going to bring back our buddy Mike Bordin back in real fast. Mike, my man, what's up?
Hello. I'm still here.
You stuck with us all last year too, so you got to stay with us. So what's on your mind, my man?
Me?
Yeah.
It's powerful, you know. I like it. I like all of it. It's a great thing. It's a great subject to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good dude that was worthy of the respect and worthy of being remembered. And you know, just I don't know, bittersweet, man. It's like 60 years old. This is such a big number.
Mm-hmm.
I met the dude when I was like 11.
Damn.
That's a long time ago. You know, that's
mm-hmm.
How many lifetimes ago is that? So it's, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot to, you know, take in. And some of the stuff you think about is these personal memories you have with your friend,
mm-hmm.
and then he's a public figure, and what do you want to, you know, whatever, man.
Well, it's cool that you
keep talking. Do your thing. You're good.
It's cool that you shared the stories with me and let me document them. And coming up, I'm really stoked. You'll be in the video following this one right now. So let me get 1982 ready. Give me one moment, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so this is 1983 and 1982. Hope you guys enjoy. Yep, whatever. Live streams. Hold on one moment. Let me just take these out and we will try again. That's what happens when you go live. Video file. Here we go.
Came over to the house, the Metallica house, and he had Colt 45 malt liquor, which is the worst beer in the world as far as I'm concerned, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, I go, what the hell are you doing with that? And he goes, it's all I could afford. And I go, man, that stuff sucks. He goes, hey, man, the best beer in the world is the one you got in your hand.
You know, in a world of skinny jeans and all that, here's this guy in big bells just doing shit we'd never heard before. It's crazy.
You know, one of the local bands they said you got to see was Trauma. So I have a vivid memory, like, you know, one of my friends, like, you know, Trauma, you got to see Trauma, like, and, you know, this was like early 82, maybe, you know, before Cliff was associated with Metallica. So, you know, I just remember people saying, you got to see this band Trauma, like, the bass player's amazing. Like, that was, it's not a myth. Like, people were talking about Trauma in terms of the bass player, even back then.
The first Metal Master came out, there was definitely, you know, a buzz. Surprising to me, basically, but there was a buzz, and I started getting all these demo tapes from people all over the country, all over the world, really, at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the demos I got was from these managers up in San Francisco who had sent me the Trauma demo tape, and it was pretty good for, especially the recording was really good. I guess these guys had some money, so they put them in a proper studio.
You know, March 82 or so, the band Saxon were on their first U.S. tour, and they played Palo Alto on the peninsula, and Trauma were the support band. So it was, you know, it was like kind of one of those shows where, like, it was amazing because Saxon, I was a huge Saxon fan, and Trauma, this band who I'd been wanting to see, were opening. So, you know, we got there early to see Trauma, and I was against the stage, and they came on, and they were everything that people had told me they would be. Like, you know, the bass player was fucking amazing. Like, I have a, you know, when Cliff did a solo during the Trauma set, and he used a drinking glass as a slide, and, you know, he was using his wah. Like, you know, I was a teenager. I'd never seen a bass player play like that. You know, Geddy Lee used pedals, and, you know, and Geezer Butler, but, like, you know, he was playing the bass like a guitarist would, like, and he did a slide solo on a bass. So I was against the stage, and you know, when Trauma finished, they were walking off, and I reached up as Cliff walked by, and, like, you know, I said, you know, whatever, I said, like, you know, great show. And then like he slapped my hand and he said like, thanks, man, whatever. And like I that's still stuck in my head because that was my first encounter with Cliff.
Watching Trauma play, you know, and it was like kind of the worst kept secret in the world at the time was Metallica were there to like scope out their potential new bass player, you know, and I just remember watching him solo and just like, that's insane. Who does that on bass? Even though, you know, we all grew up with like, you know, Sabbath and Geezer Butler and NIB, you know, we've seen guys solo on a bass, but not with all this overdrive and a wah pedal and furiously headbanging all the while, you know, it's like something else. It's crazy.
And then I can't remember if it was before or after the album actually came out, but Trauma came down to LA to play the Troubadour, which is kind of that was where all the metal bands were playing. So they came down and of course, you know, managed to come out and see them. I said, sure, they're on the record. I want to go see them. And I went to see them and, you know, honestly, the band was okay, but all I did for the entire, 40 minutes of the set was stare at Cliff because I'd never seen anyone like that before. He was, you know, this big guy with all this hair and of course dressed all in denim, just a whirling, Tasmanian devil on stage. It was just, he was incredible. And like the band was all right, you know, they weren't great, but he was unbelievable. I'd never seen anybody perform like that and play so great before. I basically just stared at him the entire time going, oh my God, this is incredible.
I'd gotten a Metallica demo like June or whatever. And then, so that's how I was introduced to Metallica. So I saw Trauma. The tape trading thing was going on with Metallica demo. And over that summer, I became a fan of Metallica through their demo. And so in the fall of 82, that's when they started playing their first show. So they were up here in like September, October, November. So they played, you know, 3 shows with their original bass player. And, you know, they're amazing. And that's kind of this, you know, the legendary start of their relationship with San Francisco and the Bay Area. And so, you know, so they had played November. And so I'm sure at some point, you know, Lars told me, or because I was more in touch with Lars than any of them at that point, you know, he said like, you know, we're getting a new bassist.
Yeah, Lars had come to me and said that they wanted to upgrade their bass player basically. And they asked me if I knew anybody. And I said, well, there's this band from San Francisco called Trauma that I saw, I don't know, a month ago or whatever it was at that time, that has a phenomenal bass player. They're coming down and playing again. This was probably, you know, a couple of weeks after Lars called me. I said, you guys should definitely come down and see him.
This band moved here for him. So
they joined him.
They joined him. So like one, you know, it seems like natural to say that now, but like if you think about it, like stepping away from it, like these kids from LA moved up here. So I would be in their band, and then like you know, Cliff's parents like, wait, this band is moving here for you. But again, it kind of shows like, you know, the support system Cliff had with his family, and like, you know, them like, wow, this sounds like a good opportunity. Why, you know, and you know, if it didn't work out, he's still at home. I'm pretty sure, and I think it's verified on the band's website. They had their first rehearsal with Cliff in December of 82 at the house. And so me, Ron Quintana, a couple other people, Rich Birch, like there were maybe 6 of us in the house. And that was Cliff's first rehearsal. And that's where I saw him again. Like, you know, and you know, when I think about it now, that was all within like 10 months, 11 months. Like at the time, all those early days, I mean, even like what we were just talking about, Cliff was only in the band, you know, what, 4 years, 3 years, however long, 4 years. That it still trips me out how much happened in a very, very short amount of time.
Yeah.
So like for me with the introduction to Cliff, it was like, so you know, I saw him with Trauma in March of that year, and then December of that same year is when he was rehearsing with Metallica. So it was like, was that 9 months? So in that 9-month period, I saw Cliff play. I was introduced to Metallica. I got to know Metallica. I met Cliff at the end of the year. That was like 9 months. Again, the time compression, it just trips me out because like a year from when I saw him with Trauma opening for Saxon, and a year later, almost to the day, he was playing his first show with Metallica. So that was 1 year. And then like, you know, that would be 1983. And then like they played their first shows, and then all of a sudden they were in New York recording their first album.
Metallica and Cliff came to New York to record in '83 in the beginning of the year. Was that your first time meeting them?
Yep. Yeah.
What was your impression of these guys?
I thought they were kind of quiet at first, especially Cliff. You know, I thought he was very quiet. They slept during the day, and they were up at night. But I came into the band a little bit later. They had already been there for a bit, and Scott was put them up in this place called the Music Building where we would rehearse. And Scott gave them like a refrigerator, a microwave, and stuff. And I just think that's where the kind of friendship started from that thing, the mutual respect of here's a band just like we are. They're already doing their record. We are trying to get to that point, you know. But like I said, there was this mutual respect of we all had something to prove, you know, not to each other, but to the world. You know what I mean? This is, here we come.
They were staying at Johnny Z's house, and God rest Johnny Z's soul. And we lost him last week, and it's been a kind of a tough hit because we lost Marcia about a year ago. They were staying at Johnny's house, and they came over to Rock and Ray's house in Old Bridge to hang out because, you know, Johnny, you know, needed a break from those guys. And I'll never forget this long-haired, wild hair, red hair, you know, bell-bottom jeans come, you know, into the house with Lars and James and Dave Mustaine and Cliff and coming and James, you know, coming in the house. But there was just something special about Cliff, you know. And what made it even more special for me was he was wearing a Leonard Skinner shirt. You know, I was a Skinner guy, Allman Brothers. I love Southern rock. Here comes a guy, you know, and you just look at him because I was just drawn to the guy. And when we kind of hung out, talked, and then I told him how much I liked his shirt. So we kind of hit it off, and it was just, you know, a wild experience to meet those guys so early in their careers, you know. So and Cliff kind of stood out, and me and him really hung out a lot, and got high a lot, and drove around and partied and watched him bang his head to Free Bird and stuff like that, you know, being the, you know, from Metallica, you know. But he didn't care because the music was, you know, an inspiration. You know, I don't care what kind of genre of music you like, as long as it gets you to a place where it makes you happy and, you know, helps you get through life. So
a year from when I first saw Metallica, they were basically on their first tour for Kill 'Em All. So like, I mean, it you know, I'm sure every music scene, because I love music history and history in general, and like, you know, I would guess that, you know, maybe some music scenes developed as fast, but like with Metallica, it's still a mind fuck because it's like, you know, that short amount of time, they, within a year, less than a year of getting Cliff in the band, they are already had their first album out, had done their first tour.
And then the greatest thing about that whole thing, like, or the friendship, was that it always remained. And what became the big four was, you know, Metallica, us, Slayer, and then Megadeth. Because back those days, Dave Mustaine was still in Metallica. He was just leaving Metallica when I was kind of coming in. I'm just thinking back to those days, and it's like I'm reliving it in a way, driving to Staten Island to the venue, and dude, it's just like crazy, you know. The more I talk about it, then things start to come into my head, and I see snapshots of it, you know.
Once the first record comes out, Kill 'Em All, I get it. Me and a buddy, the guitar player in my band, and then we're pretty much obsessed with it. And then start going and seeing them, but also seeing the guys hanging out quite a bit at the Stone. James, Jim, Cliff, Lars. I would see those guys quite a bit. Kirk would have, you know, I would see him around. I believe at the time he was dating a girl that I knew, so we were crossing paths, stuff like that. So I was heavily in the music scene.
To me, Kill 'Em All was a more refined demo, and it was their sound realized. That's what Kill 'Em All sounded like to me. It was just, man, they were firing off every cylinder. It was just so tight, and the songs were so great. And I just remembered thinking, like, this is it, man. This is next level. This is where metal should be going, you know. And it was good. And that's at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It was good.
You know, who look like they're a street gang kind of thing, imagery, and the statement is "kill them all." It's like, yeah, I'm down for that. Not that I don't like Loverboy, but no, but that was just kind of like the gist of it, kind of thing. That was the era.
I think back then everybody's taking risks, just doing things that other people wouldn't normally do, because that's kind of what, you know, there was no blueprint for anything back then. So do whatever you want. And clearly Cliff, being such a phenomenal bass player, he should have a song where he's up front. I mean, you know, at that point, probably the best, not probably, definitely the best bass player in that scene.
Yeah, and it's, you know, and it's genuine. It wasn't forced. You know, it's nothing was manufactured about. Nothing about Cliff was manufactured. Like, it's not like, you know, he was like this. It's not like he was this rock star and then a marketing company came in and like manufactured this image about him. Like, you know, that's what still kind of is interesting to me, because when you hear people talk about Cliff who never met him, or, you know, their first impression is always like how genuine he was and how, you know, approachable, and like how, you know, nothing seemed to have affected him. And like, you know, who knows what it might have happened in later years. You know, you never know what happens when fame, fortune, and all that. But I mean, the cool thing is, like, when people, you know, since like the book came out and the movie came out, like people have asked, like, you know, what was Cliff like? And what I always remember is, at least my memory of him, is like he's exactly how the myth is. Like, the myth about him is, you know, he's genuine, he's down to earth, you know, all those things. And like, in my memory, that's exactly how he was.
So he's a very Aquarian sort of guy, a little quiet, but he was extremely intelligent. And I love talking to him because, you know, you talk to, you know, we're all in our early 20s, you know, we're not Rhodes Scholars, to say the least, at that time. So the conversation is, you know, girls and music and whatever. But Cliff was really, you know, you would get into really interesting conversations with him about, you know, the world and politics and things that, you know, as a 22, 23-year-old, I wasn't really thinking that much about at the time. So it was always fascinating to talk to him, because he had a really interesting outlook on things, and a different outlook on music than a lot of that too, because he had a lot of other influences that, you know, that we weren't really necessarily there. So always fascinating guy to talk to. I always enjoyed when I got a few minutes to hang out with him, which wasn't, unfortunately, often, but it was nice when it happened.
And a lot of good times, always centered around listening to music, even if we were in a full-on rage, you know. And the funny thing is, like, whenever I'd greet Cliff back then, we greeted each other with a headbutt, you know. It's like, you know, young and dumb and all that, you know, like, yeah, bam. And one day I missed his head and I got him in the nose. I felt so bad. Like, you know, yeah, we're drunk. He said, oh, that, bam. I'm like, oh, man. Just eyes watered up immediately. Like, sorry. My aim is bad. Maybe I was a few drinks ahead of him at the moment, at the time. I don't know.
And I came in and Cliff was there with Kirk. And I sat down, just got out of driving from Pleasant, and I sat down, and Cliff grabs Kirk's guitar. Let me see that thing. You know, he just grabs it. You know, Cliff was, how do you say it? Cliff didn't put up with any shit, man. I mean, that guy, he was like almost running things, you know. I mean, even though he was, I mean, they listened to Cliff, and when he, you know, told you shut up, you shut up. But anyways, he grabbed Kurt's guitar, and he just put the thing on. He's doing this shit to it, right? And Kurt's like, stop, Cliff, stop doing that. He goes, I hate it when you play my guitar. You play it so percussionate, you know. And Cliff's not listening to a word. He's just like grinding on this thing, right?
Yeah, we lived there more than they did because they started touring first. And you know, Connie and Pam were kind of running the show, and Exodus were just like on the couches all the time. You know, they'd come home and like, oh yeah, I forgot you guys live here.
My memories of him are all that. Like, you know, it's not like, you know, we have to kind of like, well, let's forget that part of Cliff. You know, like he's not one of those people. You know.
Yeah.
And I think it just kind of shows like how people still react to him.
Yeah, definitely. That's what I'm learning from everybody, that he was just like completely ages above everybody else as far as like what he talked about and what kind of stuff really piqued his interest. I mean, he loved to party like everybody else did, but he was usually more reserved than most. I've only heard of a few stories where he ever really got blasted or like super drunk. He's always been able to like maintain himself.
Yeah, I obviously partied a lot with those guys back in the day, and they certainly earned their reputation. But yeah, Cliff, I never saw Cliff really get out of hand at all. And he would kind of, you know, usually kind of, you know, he'd be not seen after a certain point in time when we're all still partying on. So.
And it's cool because, like, you know, he was older than them, but he didn't. It wasn't like the cliche Guitar Center situation where like this older guy comes into the band and like, you know, like, you know, let me show you how to play Stairway to Heaven or whatever. You know, like it just seemed like, again, like it's, you know, hindsight's 2020, but you know, even just trying to think back, it just didn't seem forced. You know, it wasn't like, here's our new bass player. You know, it was like he was as much a part of the band out of the gate as, you know, anybody could have been. It's like, you know, again, if it back then it felt like it, and like even now, like it feels like, you know, it was like, you know, how many people have said it was meant to be, sort of thing.
Not being the leader of the band because it was James and Lars's band, but as far as like the friendship between the four of them, they all looked to him for counsel on like, how do we settle this, or what should we do this way, or even so much so as James being on stage behind the mic, looking to Cliff to get that energy and that bravery to be on stage. It's like he brought them something that they were missing and was able to turn Metallica into what it's going to be for the next 40 years.
Like they became a band, you know, like a band. It wasn't, you know, for that time, like he brought balance, you know, if anything, balance and whatever, guidance or whatever. But, you know, I mean, it was like lightning in a bottle, you know, on a lot of fronts, it seems like.
As we celebrate, you know, the life of Cliff, maybe you could do me a favor and flip back a year or two when we had Johnny and Maria and stuff talking about Cliff. We lost Johnny not too long ago, and now I know he's up in heaven with Cliff and Marcia. So maybe you could do that for me, and we take a ride back into, you know, rock and roll heaven.
Absolutely. Let's see. Give me 1 second here.
Rock and roll royalty right now, guys.
There we go.
Very, very honored to bring on this next guest, and let's keep him on this. Keep you guys on the screen as well too, because I mean, I think you guys are all pretty close to each other. Is that correct? Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, very excited to announce Mr. Johnny Z.
Johnny! Hey, how you doing, folks? I'm hanging in there, but we're here to honor one great guy.
Amen, brother.
And that's Cliff Burton.
That's right.
And that's why I popped on. You know, I do have a lot of stories to tell, I guess, but I'm just gonna keep it short, and because a lot of what was said about Cliff is all true. He was a real down-to-earth guy. He was a real, with his loon pants and his misfit shirt, like we all discussed, his great attitude towards life. What an attitude towards life he had. I mean, this guy really loved life. And, you know, the thing that I had in common with him is that everybody would be drinking and carrying on. And at least with Cliff, I could sit and smoke a friggin' joint, you know?
Amen.
And we had that in common. Wherever we met each other, I mean, the first words we said was, you know, what do you got to smoke? You know, and that became like a common bond. The story I told in the book, which to me is probably the warmest side of Cliff that I ever saw, was that he had a real compassion for the children living in my house when I had bands like Venom living there at the same time as Anvil and Raven and Metallica and all the groupies and all the tape traders and all the writers. Everywhere you went, every inch of the house was occupied by a human body dedicated to this new world and this new movement called metal. And that's the way it was in the Northeast. And Cliff used to sit down and see that, like, you know, my children, especially my middle one, Ricky, was very displaced by the fact that this was such a madhouse, such insane Sodom and Gomorrah at one point. You know, it was really crazy. But anyway, Cliff would basically, when Ricky went to bed, Cliff would go and read Ricky stories at night, and, you know, just to chill out a little bit. I think that was really like a very cool thing. It's not like it was a one-time thing. He took a genuine interest in the children of the Zazula family, and I thought that was a beautiful thing. Family when we were together, absolutely. And in the end, I went out to Anthrax. We were on tour with Metallica before Stockholm, and the day before they left, I was with Cliff, and we met by the Great Bullfrog. I believe that's the name of the jeweler on Carnaby Street. And we, of course, went down the alley and smoked a joint together and had a really great conversation about life and the band and where they were going. And he went off to go on tour with his band. When I got to San Francisco, that's when I found out about what happened.
That was really cool to be able to talk to Johnny Z last year. You know, we all know what he did for Metallica, Anthrax, and metal as a whole. It was a huge honor to be able to talk to that dude, and he was really cool. And I was able to exchange some emails with him, you know, back and forth following the event, and picked up his book, you know, read the story of his life, and it was pretty amazing. So, you know, rest in peace, Johnny Z. Thank you very much for what you did for this metal community, and, you know, you're a legend yourself, man. So thank you very much. I wanted to take a moment because I saw in the comments some people were wondering where to purchase this year's Cliff Burton shirts at. So, JP, if you can pull up a link for us real fast, we'll put it down here at the bottom. Right there, boom. Probity selling our shirts. Make sure you get them right away, because I mean, I don't believe they'll be up there forever. But also, as mentioned earlier, the shirts, let me pull, JP, can you pull up a photo of the shirts? I believe we have it in the backdrop section. The proceeds of the shirt go to the Cliff Burton Scholarship Fund. So just as that's last year's shirt. That's a cool shirt too. Y'all, hope y'all should have got that shirt. I wish I would have got one. Just kidding, I got one. It's on its way. There it is. Boom. So yeah, so there's our Cliff Burton figure. Unfortunately, it's sold out. Brian Liu and Super 7, we love what you do. Can you guys make some more of those bad boys, dude? Because we're gonna need them. I want to see those in Target. And I love how it has the Aria base, but also has a hammer. And is that the Kill 'Em All hammer, or is that the personal little hammer he used to carry on tour by, like, everywhere he went that he decorated and everything? Because that's super Cliff Burton. The only other thing you can add to that is maybe some ninja stars, like in the Ninja Turtle toys. There's both our shirts, the pancake shirt that Charlie Benante mentioned, that his story is on back, and then the shirt that Charlie drew and painted himself. So it's like, that's really cool this year that we had like personal art from a friend who was with Cliff from 86, no, from 82 to 86. Like, that's so cool. Huge honor to talk to Charlie Benante, because I'm a big Anthrax fan. And his interview was like 2.5 hours, I want to say. It was super long. We talked about Star Wars, talked about toys, talked about Anthrax, and most importantly, we talked about Cliff. I'm going to put that interview on this channel as well too after this event. I hate to say it, but I only have one video left. Really don't want this day to end. So before we get into our last video, let's bring Mike back on one more time, maybe two more times, but let's bring him back on this time. Mike, my man. So what's on your mind, Mike?
Hi.
Hi. Hi.
I think it's tomorrow already on the East Coast. So
I know we have to start wrapping it up soon.
I hope everybody had a really wonderful Cliff Day.
I definitely did.
Hey, one thing I want to sneak in real quick. Everybody keeps talking about the great musical diversity of this great individual and this legendary all-time great bass player. But they're like saying, well, it was GBH and Black Sabbath and Skynyrd. But let's talk about Bach, which, you know, was a massive part of his musical education and really went a huge, long way in making him be able to express himself how he did and make him like nobody else. Bach, REM, Sex Pistols, REM again, I'll say it again, but you know, it's just a Rush. That's what I was thinking of, Thin Lizzy. But don't forget Bach, because Bach is a whole different deal. You know, Bach is a whole different deal. And that, to me, that really shows a dude that's of that age, a 20-year-old, come on. He's out finding that stuff and taking it on board. I mean, that's deep.
I mean, to put that kind of melody in Master of Puppets, like, you know that dude was the inspiration behind it, and that comes from his like Bach and musical pieces that he studied.
It's about as deep as it gets, and that's Bach and Beethoven. You know, whatever. That's eternal. That's timeless music, and that's where our friend is now. It's eternal. It's timeless. One thing I could say for a couple people that aren't here right now, and that is his dad loved big band music and loved swing music, you know, and his mom loved country music, you know, so he was surrounded by all kind of different music from all sides, you know, and he soaked it all in, man, all of it.
That's what I'm coming to find is Cliff Burton isn't just Motorhead and Iron Maiden. Like his musical,
great too. I mean, yeah, but everything.
And that's what made these albums that we're all ridiculously crazy over. And that's why, you know, it's been 35 years since, you know, he went to the Cosmos, and we're still talking about Cliff today. We're still gathering, the entire world right now. People all over the world are gathering to talk about Cliff, which is super like touching. And I do have to say that I am very thankful to Casey, the Cliff Burton family, and everybody for allowing me to just talk to you guys, like hear your stories and stuff. I mean, I'm just a normal dude. Last year, someone in the comments said, "Hey, Nicholas, thanks for doing this, but who the hell are you?" And who am I? I'm just I'm the luckiest Cliff Burton fan in the world. You know? Yeah,
somebody's got to order that chaos.
Yeah, I mean, it's been the best year so far interviewing everybody. Last year was just as amazing, and I don't know what we're gonna do for Cliff Burton Day moving forward. I mean, it can only get bigger from here. We can only go up. One day, I hope to do a concert.
R.I.P. to Johnny Z.
Yes, definitely R.I.P. to Johnny Z.
R.I.P. to him. He was. I mean, you know, we can talk about all of us. We were in the Bay Area and this and that, but I mean, you could argue that he was one of the guys that had the vision, and I guess Brian Slagel too, to take it worldwide, you know, and to make it go to the next leveling, you know. So, you know, he had a big hand in it. So, you know, he deserves a lot of respect.
Absolutely. I'm glad we were able to talk to him last year, and me and Metal Joe definitely wanted to bring him on here this year since, you know, he just passed. So
yeah,
it's cool to be able to honor, you know, the greats that have passed before us. So.
Credit where credit is due. That's
Absolutely.
All you can do.
Absolutely. If anybody would like to reach out to the Cliff Burton Day team, our email is cliffburtonday@gmail.com. So, you know, this is a labor of love, guys. And if you guys want to join us and planning this stuff and, you know, just being involved, send us an email. Mike, it is getting late.
Long ass day, dude.
It's a good day too. It's a good day. I'm going to play the last video now. And I just want to say before I do it that this video out of all of them is the most touching one to me that I've had the most pleasure making. And I watched it 1,000 times and made sure that it was perfect. But like I said, it's the most touching. It's of Cliff's closest friends and family. And I really hope you guys all enjoy it. Mike and JP, after this video, maybe we'll all pop on and say our goodnights, but let me cue up this video.
Before this, thank you for all your efforts, because it's a lot of effort.
Thank you very much.
Take it away.
Take it away. Okay, here we go. This is the last video. This is chapter 6. I entitled it. Actually, you'll see the title. Here we go.
On this day you were born, like a shooting star, you shine so bright. The Lord poured grace upon us the day you were born, to be the best musician you could be for our brother Scott. You did this indeed. Game changer, history maker. That's you, my brother. From birth, you did it like no other. We moved to Castro Valley and I was 5 years old.
What was the first street that you lived on in Castro Valley?
Shamrock Way. We lived there for years.
It's been quite some time since I've visited Castro Valley, but I want to tell you that it was the years that I lived here were very nice, good memories, and particularly good memories of the kids that Cliff and Connie and Scott came in touch with.
So I met Cliff in 1975. Playing in a band, we were all beginning musicians, and the bass player that we had, he got too busy to play bass with us anymore, and so he recommended a bass player, and that was Cliff. So that's when I met him, right around 1975. Puffy was in the band.
I remember when we were just kind of first getting to know each other at the very beginning of maybe 6th grade or whatever it was, and I was saying to him, "Oh, man, you got to check out this Blue Oyster Cult record. I'll bring it to you. You got to hear this. It's insane." And I bring it to him. We would always trade things back and forth, and he would tape them. And he brought it back, and then he brought me an album and said, "Oh, you got to hear this. This is my brother's."
My brother Scott, I loved with all my heart and soul. And Scott was a very unusual human being. He was extraordinary, like his brother. He was very different, Nicholas, in the way that he did not understand what hate was.
When you want to talk about the early stuff, is like when they were on Emerald and Gem. That was the other side of town, and that's where I was. I lived on the other side of Earl Warren Park there, and we would meet a lot of times just in between our houses. We would meet in the and there's a creek there and a bridge, and we would just hang out in the park, and we were young. I mean, I'm talking about, this is before high school.
Cliff and Scott were very close. They shared a bedroom from time that Cliff was very young, but he definitely got a great deal of influence because him and Scott shared a bedroom and they were very close.
Would you say that Scott was the one who turned Cliff on to rock music and just music as a whole?
No, that's a good question. I mean, I was thinking about, you can't help but sort of think about stuff like that in the run up to this week. And especially that the big, the milestone that it is at 60. And to be fair, I remember too that he had said, "Oh, my sister, she's really into this Jeff Motul, Aqualung record, and it's like." So I don't think you can say that it was just coming from one place.
Well, now Scott was he had a little 125 cc's motorcycle, and he could take that damn thing apart and put it back together and just go putting down the road in it.
But Scott was a very unusual person and very extraordinary and a great motocross rider. He could ride a motorcycle like no other. We used to go out Redwood Road, but it was a big old mountain out there that they'd made for motocross. Scott used to take that mountain and where other guys would eat it and not even be able to make it, right? And boy, he'd do it, Nicholas. He would do it, and everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, look at this dude," right?
And Cliff didn't know a spark plug from an exhaust pipe.
Thing you were saying before though about you're talking about Scott, and I think that Scott was really into motorcycles as Ray was, and motorcycle racing as Ray was. So you talk about wearing the clothes or the culture of that time. So then you're wearing the boots or the jackets or the denim or whatever. I mean, that was part of the culture then. We kind of really gravitated as young. Again, we're young kids. We're 11, 12, 13 years old. That's young.
His older sister was a motorcycle person.
Well,
Ray was a motorcycle person, and Scott.
Ray had that little. He had that little 2-stroke Harley Davidson Capricer. That was his pride and joy. And I think that Scott was really down for that too. I get to go down to the Burton house, and Ray's taking us to Laguna Seca. He's taking us to Sears Point for motorcycle races, and it's like I felt, included. And Ray, again, another story that Ray has told, and I let him tell it because certain things you don't want to exploit or whatever. But the first time he says that he ever met me, was running down Castro Valley Boulevard right in front of the old Payless up there at the top, and Cliff said to get in, and I'd cut school. I was going to Scott's funeral. And so they picked me up and drove me off there. So, I mean, we go way back, it was a pretty deep connection. So, and Cliff and I had known each other a good, I don't remember when Scott actually passed, what time of year it was, but I would say we were probably good friends for maybe, I don't know, not a year, maybe half a year or more, before that. So I was around enough of Scott to see, that Cliff really respected him. I don't want to say idolized him or whatever, but he really looked up to him. Really looked up to him. You know what I mean? So that's powerful. That's powerful.
Yeah.
So.
I'll swear, as Scott had lived, he would have become a mechanic of some type.
And Cliff was so uncoordinated that he wasn't going anywhere. And he wanted so hard to be able to play sports and do football, but he had flat feet and he was so uncoordinated. And so he went to horticulture instead.
Okay, yeah, green thumb. There's a famous photo of him holding a giant weed plant. Is that where he learned how to grow?
Yeah, he grew that in the backyard. And there he found his calling for the moment.
Yeah, a lot of people mention he had a swagger, a particular walk about him. Are you saying that it may have came from the flat feet uncoordination that he had?
Yeah. He poor Cliff, he just, it was like when he played baseball, and he's running from base to base. I mean, he put everything into it, but his body just wasn't built for that, which we had no idea at the time that it was built for banging on the base.
Yeah.
I mean, and then he tried to join the army at one point, and they wouldn't let him in the army because of his flat feet,
And I know what I was wanting to tell. One of I don't know if it was Mike or who mentioned the car, his Volkswagen.
Well, the modern kids would call it janky or hoopty. It was a Volkswagen Squareback with the 411 or whatever they call those things, and it was beat up and.
It was pretty tore back. It had room for his amp and his equipment. It just fit perfectly for Cliff's stuff and fit everything in there nice and neat and tidy.
Yes, the green grasshopper. It was a thing for sure.
Fast food wrappers and stuff like that all over the floors.
Legend has it he had vice clamps on the steering wheel.
he had beaten that steering wheel so bad, all right, because he used to play the bass while he was driving. And he used to beat on the steering wheel like he did on his bass. And one day he beat off the steering wheel of the car to the car. I was like, okay, Houston, we have a problem. I said, how are you going to fix it? What are you going to do, right? All of a sudden he's got this roll of duct tape in his hand. There's no problem, right? Sure enough, he duct taped the steering wheel back to the steering column. There he went.
He knew, he learned enough about that doggone Volkswagen that he would be driving on the freeway, and there's a pipe of some type that would come loose, and Cliff would pull over to the side of the freeway and hop out and get it underneath the car and put the plug, whatever the damn thing was. And anyway, I thought, gee, Benante, Cliff had some mechanical brains about something, because he never was all that interested in the mechanics that Scott showed.
The straw that broke the camel's back was when he had already missed the plane a couple of times. The dang car didn't get there, right? And I said, look, Cliff, look, he missed the plane to France. He missed the plane because his car broke down. And on the way to the airport. So after that, they started sending limousine to pick up Cliff, and they hired him a babysitter, a personal assistant, because he wasn't cutting the mustard, you know. He couldn't even get to the gigs, right? I said to him, Cliff, why don't you buy a new car, you know? I said, look, you don't even have to go down there. All you got to do is call up, tell them what you want and what color you want, and they'll like send it over to the house. You've got that much money. And he's like, no, this one's good. It's still got life in it. It's still running good. The only thing that you spend money on for him was food, sushi, musical equipment. He said he never, ever chanced on my musical equipment.
He was particularly proud of it. Didn't want to replace it when it was starting to fall apart.
I mean, just, you know, I think about one of the random conversations that we had, and some of them I keep to myself because you got to keep something. And you know, some of the things that he said about what he really wanted out of this, this being, you know, the band that he was in that was streaking towards superstardom at the time, but whatever, it's got him to Ruthie's.
And yeah, he had a crummy car. Everybody said he had a crummy car. Yeah, but that's what kids have, are crummy cars. So if he was alive now, he'd have a better car.
So let's talk about the 49ers. Was that like, was that the thing of your guys' household? Was that something, I want to use the term sacred, not disrespectfully, but like, was it held to the highest standards, the 49ers?
Yeah, that was one of the, definitely, high priority, 49er faithful, always watching the game. You know, I don't think that there was a game that was ever missed unless they were at the game. But my mom was definitely a 49er faithful. And then my dad joined in shortly after that.
Nice.
I mean,
nice.
to be as faithful as she was. But,
did you and Cliff watch the games with him on Sundays?
Yeah.
Nice.
For a long time. It was a whole family thing.
For sure, man. They were mad for it. They were huge, gigantic, diehard, loyal 49er fans, season ticket holders, and this is when the team was very bad. It was a really 2-14 team, you know, well known as far as the couple of years before Bill Walsh came along with, you know, they weren't good. They never were good, and but yeah, they had season tickets at Candlestick, and they were so into it. I mean, I say it a lot, and it's true, is that Jan was really kind of the person that taught me the most about football of anybody I've ever met. you know, because she was so into it. That was kind of infectious, you know. So I ended up going to a few games with them at Candlestick, and they were up on the top deck, but right at the 50-yard line, and they had all these people around them. They had a lot of good friends there that they'd had forever, and I think that they might have even had tickets at Kezar too back in the day.
Oh wow, okay.
I think maybe. But and Ray too. Ray would tell the story a lot about the first Super Bowl. I think it was the Bengals. I think it was in Detroit or something. It was at the Silverdome, maybe. And Ray was talking about how hammered Jan got at the Super Bowl. He didn't go. He stayed home. But she went, and evidently she just got and you know, had a good time.
Jan was a great fan of opera, and I think kind of some of that stuff might have rubbed off on Cliff. But yeah, attribute an awful lot of success with Scott and Cliff music, I should say, is how much Jan was the main emphasis on Cliff, and he came to us one time and said, "Mom and Dad, can you help me for 5 years? Help me when I need money or food or whatever. And if I haven't, this band Metallica, if we haven't made it," it says, "then I will become a studio musician." And that statement right there told me just how much Cliff felt about his own ability. Even though he had a lot of humility, he emphasized that he wasn't as good as others, yet he knew he was good. When you know that you can be a studio musician, you're pretty cotton picking good. And Cliff was, and it really shows over time. And I see little snippets of him playing, and he's pretty dang good.
Now, Cliff's mom, Jan Burton, I met her also in probably around 1975. You know, we were young, and Cliff, he was interested in doing stupid stuff that young guys do, teenagers do. So, you know, I go over to his house, and his mom's there. And of course, you know, as mothers are, they're suspicious of new people. And, you know, they were living in an apartment at the time on Stanton Avenue in Castro Valley. And, you know, we couldn't make much noise there because they were managers of the apartment, and you had to keep the noise down so that the other tenants would not complain. And, you know, over time she got used to us, but still, you know, Cliff had to be quiet. We were there sometimes at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, so thinking back at it, she was pretty tolerant of us. And of course, the old man, Cliff's dad, he was, you know, he knew what was going on, and, you know, he was very tolerant of what we were doing. And Cliff would play his bass in his room, and his amplifier would barely be turned on. And his mom would say, "Cliff, it's too loud down." And he would. He'd turn it down anymore, and I go, "Jesus Christ, how the fuck can you play anything?"
The other thing about Jan too was, you know, Ray worked really hard. Mm-hmm. Ray got up every morning at 4:30 or 5 in the morning, whenever it was, and he went out to work and he did his thing. And so Jan was there with Cliff. Mm-hmm. Jan, she was the one that was there when we would come home from school or whatever and hang out, you know, and so she was always around. And Ray wasn't around as much because Ray was busy working.
He was working
really hard, you know, and it takes both. You got to have everybody, but she was there. So yeah, no, she was the best, man. She was
the major influence and help that from our family came from Jan. Jan was one, she never pushed, we never pushed Cliff to do anything. We didn't have to tell him to practice. He just wanted to do what he knew he wanted to do, and that is play the bass guitar. And the good point is he wanted to play it the way it sounded great to him. It sounded good to him. And by gosh, that kid went down the road that way and just made 3 fantastic recordings.
He was special.
She was the one who sparked Cliff's interest in the fishing, correct?
She loved to fish. I mean, again, she taught me how to fish. You know, and I can't say that about my parents. You know, she taught me how to fish.
Okay, here we go. One day we went fishing with my mom, as we usually did, a couple times a week, at least 3 times a week, at Lake Chabot. And Cliff was out there, and he was like, I think he was about 8 or 9, and this man was fishing. He went to cast out. They were fishing off the pier. My mom was there, and Cliff was there, and I was there. And when he threw his pole back, the hook that he was using, because the size of the hook was so big, it wrapped around Cliff's jugular vein. My mom, they were out on the pier, and my mom carried him, which he was a big boy. He was already tall, big, you know? She carried him 5 miles out from the pier, right? To the car, and no one would help her. And my mom carried him all the way to the car, drove home, and Cliff was like as white as a ghost. And they drove up. My mom jumps out of the car, runs in, gets my dad. We have to go to the hospital, right? Brought Cliff to the hospital. The doctor had to cut the barb, right? He had to cut that. He had to cut the hook up in order to get it out, to slide it back through around the jugular vein without potentially catching the jugular vein and having him bleed to death, right? The doctor went ahead and did that. He was okay, lived through it, obviously, to go on and do his music.
I have to hand it to your mom, Jan, because I know that 5-mile walk that you're talking about. Because when you hike into Lake Chabot, you have, I don't know if it was paved back then or if it was dirt, but you have hills going up and down to get to the pier. And that's not an easy walk. It was dirt back there. Yeah. So it's not easy to get in and out of Lake Chabot quick. And to be carrying Cliff like that, that's superwoman powers right there. That's mama bear powers right there.
Oh yeah, definitely. Every instinct that she had was out there running. You know, to save her son's life.
You gravitated towards that family because what I'm finding out is there's something absolutely special. Yeah, nothing but love.
Flat out. I mean, and with Jan, I couldn't even get through it in 5, 6, 7 hours of talking about it. You know,
she took you into her nest. Yeah, you were a part of the family. You grew up with Scott.
And you know what?
Cliff
Maybe, and this is a maybe. I'm just guessing now because it's 40 years after the fact. But maybe that felt somewhat good for them too, because they lost. I don't know. How do I know?
Absolutely.
I couldn't guess, and then I don't want to. You know, as I get older, I really try not to put words in people's mouths and let them speak for themselves. But you know, maybe so. I don't know. Who knows? But it was a gift, and it was a super fortunate blessing that I was the person that happened to. You know what? Jan was that cool.
That's got to be the coolest parent beyond all the
He's
other
the best.
miles above. Like to smoke weed with your son's
on.
friends or your adopted son, essentially. That's so
Come
cool.
on. And I'm talking about 1975, 76. It's very illegal.
That
there.
in the 70s too. Like you guys are still minors. That rules. How
But that
was
was the thing I think you need to remember is that Jan and Ray saw that Cliff had his shit together.
they were okay with the weed then?
And there were other people in that influence of their family that didn't necessarily have their shit together. They knew the difference. And they responded to it accordingly. And that was, they gave him the respect. He never fucked up. He never blew it. He took care of business. He was responsible. He wasn't a liar or a thief or a criminal or a hustler. Bullshit. You know, he was a good kid. He was morally, he was fully formed. You know, there's been a lot made of the fact that he hated lying and stealing more than anything, and it's true. You know, so I just think that they responded to who they saw in front of them and gave him the respect that he deserved.
They gave him the respect of an adult while still maintaining the relationship as parents.
They gave him the benefit of the doubt, enough leeway that they thought he could handle it.
That's so cool.
And when it came to be, hey, Dad, I want to play bass and I want to buy a bass, the Burtons that didn't have a lot of money, what did they do? They piled in the truck and we all drove down to Guitar Center San Jose and bought him that bass. The nicest bass they could find on the floor.
I mean, the Rickenbacker is not an affordable bass. And to do that for your son's first endeavor in getting into music, like that's how much support that's like missing a month of rent to be like, dude, we believe in you. Like,
no question.
At that young age, they saw the potential in their son.
That's what I'm saying. And give him the respect accordingly, because he was a serious-minded kid. He wasn't a fool. He didn't like fools. I mean, he was funny. Don't get me wrong. I mean, he was funny as hell, and you know, and a cut up and a joker, and you know that, but in the right spot. You know, I mean, in the right spot. So yeah, I mean, all of those things. But Jan Burton. Couldn't say enough good things about her. We don't even have enough time to say enough good things about her. Supreme. I mean, what can I say?
You know, and then eventually Jan and Ray came with us up to Maxwell after Cliff passed away, and to spread some of Cliff's ashes up there because that was a place that he really liked. And they slept in the back of a pickup truck, and Dave and I jammed. Jan poured the gin and tonics. We all had a great time. She liked it, and she described us as fucked up weirdos, the music that we were making. And really, if you think about it, you know, we're improvising. It was all improvisational. We were playing jazz. That's what we liked. We liked to play jazz.
I know one. When I would come home from work, and I would get off of the bus right there where Stanton meets Castro Valley Boulevard, and I would be walking up to our apartment house, and Cliff's bedroom had a great big window facing the street, and he had a lamp, and he had it situated so that while he was playing, there was a silhouette from the window with the curtain down, but it showed this his body, well, you know what I mean. Silhouette, that's it. So anyway, here would be old Cliff pounding, rocking his head and so forth, practicing the movement, not only playing the guitar, but playing with a certain flair, which I considered Cliff's idea of showmanship. And that was one of the things that is well practiced, and yet it blended right in with his playing of the guitar. He was very conscientious about his guitar playing.
our house on Gem Avenue. Cliff, he was carving his initial in the tree one day, right? And I walked out and I go, oh man, dude, that's both of our initials. And I tripped on it, right? And then I went back, I don't know, it's probably around last time I've been down to the Bay Area. And they chopped down the tree.
And this, and just the whole Bay Area pride too. I mean, you're telling me these stories of you and Cliff driving around San Mateo and Foothill Boulevard in the 80s. It's like, I know exactly what that sounds like what the radio stations sound like back then, KFRC.
Yeah.
He was pretty like a philosopher, I would call him, as far as like what he would talk about. That's cool.
Oh yeah, he would talk, you know, you could talk to Cliff about anything really, even some subjects where we like totally disagreed. I was coming from one side and he was coming from the other, you know what I mean? Even those kind of discussions, we just go on for days, you know, and have a great time doing it, you know?
Yeah.
You know, all at the office over sushi and sake, you know? So we had a lot of quality time together in that respect.
That's cool.
And I was like, okay, fine, right? You know, let's go to sushi. I'm ready for the sushi and the sake.
All right.
We used to have great times. Oh, we
Where
used
did
to
you
have
guys
so
go?
much fun.
Where were you seeing Castro Valley? You go to Hayward?
There was in Hayward, there was a place called Ichiban. It was on Foothill Boulevard, because we loved that place, man. We used to go there at least 2-3 times a week, if not more. And we have so much fun, Nicholas. It was just like a blast. We'd eat and we'd talk and then we'd drink sake and then we'd go outside and smoke cigarettes. Then we'd come back in, we'd eat more and we'd drink more sake, go out for cigarettes and come back in and eat some more and do it all. We'd spend 3 and 4 hours.
Oof. That bill at the end of the night has to be crazy.
Parlor.
You know how expensive that is?
Oh yeah.
That's now okay.
Yeah.
So he loves
and
sushi.
He had the money to do it too. He didn't mind doing it at all. It was nothing to him.
That's cool.
Because he really only spent his money on sushi and musical equipment and a couple of new T-shirts because he had to have some new T-shirts.
So
okay,
no new pants, no new shoes. He was just.
You could tell his pants were all the holes in them. You know what I mean? And his shoes were, you know, they were falling off, and they were, you know, he wasn't going to go buy a new pair of shoes for the whole gig. Are you kidding me? He was adamant about the whole thing. This is how it works, man. No. And he had it all down. And it worked for him, but we used to have so much fun. And he started up this thing. I remember the first night that we did it, he would invite on purpose people that had never had sushi and sake before. His friends were getting lessons in the sushi and sake department. We'd bring people out to dinner with us. Oh my gosh, Nicholas. We would watch these people. They're just down in the sake. You know what I'm saying?
Not realizing how much
alcohol's
alcohol's
in it. I've never had sake before. By the time we have the first cigarette, or at least the second one, definitely. But usually by the first break, they were already throwing up. And we would just crack up. Cliff and I would just, we were hysterical each and every time. But we used to have the greatest time. It was a lot of time that Cliff and I spent together. A lot of times, you know, we'd go all over the place, from down in Hayward down there to over to San Francisco, you know, to San Mateo, to wherever, you know. And it was a big outing, you know, sushi and sake. And we had so much fun.
Yeah, it kind of seems like Cliff is a product of the Burton family as a whole, being the youngest one.
But I remember Ray talking to Cliff about music and saying, "Don't forget the melody. You know, don't forget. You know, don't forget that you know, it's great to be aggressive or whatever you want to do and make it loud and shaggy, but you know, melody is king. You know, melody speaks. You know, and so he definitely had his say about that.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's no question about it. Absolutely. And Jan liked country. Jan
Oh,
was
okay.
country.
There, and you can see Cliff Burton's country influence
No
with like the
question.
Leonard Skinner and like the Leonard Skinner-esque riff.
Yeah, I mean, I think I told the story before, but one of the few times I ever saw Ray get mad was the 4th of July, 1976. It was Leonard Skinner and Peter Frampton, Day in the Green.
Mm.
And my sister's boyfriend lived 2 houses down from them. And so anyway, Tom was driving us to this Day in the Green, right? It was July 4th, and it was Skinner. And Cliff didn't, you know, he didn't have any money. They didn't have a lot of money, you know, they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so he wasn't going. And who we were going with blew us off that morning. And we had an extra ticket. So immediately I run into the backyard and start banging on his window, you know, and it's, you know, it's 4th of July.
Mm-hmm.
It's early in the morning, you know, Day in the Green, you're going there early to get in line because it's Leonard Skinner and this and that. And I already seen him a couple times before that, and I knew they were spectacular live. And I'm banging on the window. Cliff was a sleeper, man. He was asleep. He was asleep. It's like when he was in the bathroom taking a shower, ready to go. It took a while. It didn't matter if you were in a hurry or not. It took a while.
He was a slow mover. He moved at his own pace.
100%, 1,000%. He
Mm-hmm.
was just, that's what it was. That's what it was. And so I'm banging on the window, banging on the window, and after a while, and it was a while. After a while, curtain peaks. Cliff, close the curtain again. I bang again because he closed the curtain. I bang again, because he closed the curtain, and Ray comes out.
Oh.
And Ray was pissed because poor Ray's, he's getting up at 4:30 every morning. He gets his day off.
It's the 4th of July. He's trying to enjoy some sleep.
Right. And so, but we collected Cliff, and we got him the hell out of there, and we went and saw Leonard Skinner together.
I love how he peaks.
He did. He's taking it close.
Like, dude, I'm trying to get you to see Leonard Skinner, dude. Come on. Like, and he'd much rather sleep on a Saturday afternoon or a Saturday morning.
Yeah, it worked out okay. But I do think he was supportive, and I do think he realized that maybe Cliff wasn't the massive academic, and he was not going to become the white collar professional person, you know, or whatever. But I think nurturing something that we both really were drawn to and were really clearly committed to and devoted to, I think he did support that. I mean, it's just quite obvious that he did. And again, that just, to me, that's just another kind of special feature of how really kind of great they were.
Cliff Burton will live on. Metallica has made sure of that. Ray Burton has made sure of that. Casey's making sure of that. And we're glad that all you who were watching this are interested enough to keep it going. And there's a lot of music out there. There's a lot of good musicians. Cliff was very unique. He's a unique part of the planet. He associated with unique people. And yeah, that's it, man. Good luck.
And I definitely want to say praise God and hallelujah. Happy birthday to Cliff, my brother, my dear, dear brother. His contribution here on this planet, being able to accomplish what he set out to accomplish. And that was to be the best musician he could be, that he had the potential to be for his brother Scott. That is something that not only to have those feelings, but to be able to express them and have them manifest here on this planet is totally awesome. God-given gift that he had to share not only with his brother, but with the whole rest of the world.
I want to thank all of you for showing up here. Just that Cliff would be absolutely, his humility would show up. And he had a like for human beings.
There was never a time that Cliff wasn't classic, because Cliff was always classic, and Cliff was always eternal, and Cliff was always better than everybody else, naturally, because of who he was and just what he did. So he was always, it was always there. And I think in a way he's always the quality that he stood for, you know, the excellence in music and composition and execution, you know, that he stood for. And everybody that you talk to is going to tell you that, you know, how truly blindingly fucking excellent he was at what he did, you know, and natural. So, you know, and that's a wonderful thing, because again, you're not talking about the best guy in your block. You're not talking about the best guy in your high school. You know, you're not talking about the best guy even in your town. You're talking about one of the best people in the universe of all time. That's very special. You know, and the fact that we, you know, were able to, you know, breathe in the fucking rocket fuel and the vapor dust of that, you know, magic is, you know, it's special.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And it doesn't happen all the time. It's a once in a lifetime thing. It's a once in a lifetime thing.
Hope you guys liked the video. That was a super fun time making that video. And as I mentioned, it's really touching to be able to talk to everybody and have them tell me stories about Cliff. And I mean, I know they're personal. I know, you know, that's your story, your moment, your memory that you're holding on to. So super thank you to everybody for sharing those with me, because I'm just a dude from Castro Valley too, just like Cliff. And, you know, that dude inspired me and many other people throughout the world to chase their dreams. And that's what we're doing here today. So I just want to say thank you. It's already the end of Cliff Burton Day 2022. We'll be back next year. Don't know what we're doing yet, but we got to do it bigger and better, stronger, more Cliff. I want to say thank you to everybody who helped, especially a special thanks to Canada Dave for helping me out. He was there the whole time helping me. So thank you, Canada Dave. Thank you, Casey, for having me involved. Connie, thanks for, you know, our talk on the phone. Thank you. Shout out to my mom, Christina, Carlos, and Christian for watching, and all my Gomez family out there. I want to bring back Mike and JP, and you know, we'll all say goodnight together. Hey boys, how'd you guys like the video?
That was a lot, dude.
Yeah, that was heavy. So cool.
That was a lot. That was really beautifully done.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
To you for wrangling it and you know, making all the fleas jump in the right direction at the right time for the flea circus. But, you know, again, hey, man, it's a tribute to the person we're talking about. You know, as many people said, he's worthy of that legacy. No shit, no cheating, no forgetting things. You know, he was a righteous dude, and he's deserving of this legacy. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Horns up.
Well, we'll be back every year to keep the legacy of Cliffburton alive. And I mean, it's there, dude. It's in the cosmos. It goes on forever. Those songs are broadcasted throughout the stars for the rest of eternity. So,
thanks, JP.
Very cool. And JP, yes, thank you for doing the behind the scenes work. Couldn't have done it without you. You made this year 1,000,000 times easier on me. So, dude, thank you very much, my man.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And I just want to say that JP is the host of a very beautiful, awesome talk show called The Morning After that I'm a big fan of and I love watching. So please check him out. He wasn't going to say it, so I had to say it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Definitely. Cool. Well, gentlemen, it's been a beautiful night. Shall we say so long, farewell, till we meet again? All right, gentlemen, I'm going to press the red button. Now, all you viewers out there watching, stuck with us the whole time, we love you. Peace.
Cheers. Take care.